So it appears that we've got some issues with X, and there are a bunch of people that are trying to see if I can get in now. Okay, it appears to be up now. Let's see what's going to happen. Just some nice elevator music now. This is crazy. Some funny posts going on. So what do you guys think? You think this was malicious or just a fluke? He said he tested the network and they were able to run 8 million concurrent listeners on this space earlier today. So it does appear very odd indeed. Here's some music's coming from Trump's channel. If you guys are new to the channel, go ahead and like and subscribe. Share this with your peeps. We're going to be doing a lot more of this as we go into the home stretch of the election. Go ahead and drop a comment in the comments to let me know what you think this really was. We're going to listen and react to some of this stuff live. You guys are not subscribed to our X channel, go ahead and subscribe to it. We are growing by leaps and bounds on both YouTube and trying to grow our X as well, getting more involved in the political sphere and giving our reactions and opinions as Christian conservatives to what's going on, what's crazy in the world. How are you guys doing tonight? See what people are saying. So DDoS, that means it came from outside. At first, when I heard this, I was like, man, Elon needs to clean house over there because I don't think he's cleaned out all the woke employees. Still don't think that, based off of some smaller accounts getting banned or slapped with suspensions over posting true things. My buddy Chris Heaven, he got hit with a ban for a week for posting something that was actually a legal thing. So it's kind of crazy. So I think there's still a lot of woke in the Twitter employee or ex-employee world that's causing these things to happen. It's very odd indeed. Very odd indeed. But what do you guys think? Drop it in the comments. Welcome, KNM Fake 2004. Welcome to the stream. Glad to have you on here. Okay, Trump finally muted his his elevator music, which was kind of funny. So we are patiently awaiting the start of this. Now it looks like Elon is actually not in the stream, so I wonder what's going on. Let's check and see if any kind of new. It's like Nick Sorter thinks that this is attempt to silence Trump. They've tried everything up to including killing him, so that's not surprising. Not surprising at all. Go ahead and give me you guys' reactions to what you think, why you think every turn it seems like there's some kind of thing that's trying to silence Trump. I think it's a combination of deep state. The Democrats are scared of him, and who knows, man? It's a crazy time that we live in right now. Yeah, so we're just patiently awaiting what's going on. Sorry, I just sent a text to my wife. I've got kids upstairs going to bed right now, so if you guys hear frantic children, that's probably why. My studio is actually in my basement. I'm not one of those independently wealthy guys, but I'm trying to grow and trying to get my opinions and views out to you guys and maybe help inspire some people to stand up a little bit more. We're just waiting, and it still looks like got like I can't see how many people are actually in. 918,000 other listeners. So we've got 918,000, almost 920,000 people listening to this. Okay, Elon's back. It looks like when they start talking, I'm not going to do too much talking over them, but I'll give a little bit of commentary if it's needed. This could be pretty crazy. If you guys are not following us on X, please follow us. We're trying to grow that, and it would be awesome to have you guys on there following us. Pretty amazing stuff here. Really glad to see you guys. Yeah, I agree. K&M Fake. They are afraid of him. It's very obvious. There's nothing more, nothing more obvious than they tried to impeach him twice for bull crap garbage, and then tried to silence him, tried to bankrupt him, still trying to bankrupt him. And when all else fails, you try and kill them. And I do believe that while I don't know all of the details, I do believe that they, at very least, at best, I should say, allowed this young man to get into the security perimeter and get shots off. And at worst, it was a deep state conspiracy. And there's really no other good answers for that, for the security failure of the assassination attempt. So we have to be aware of this stuff and stand up, and we got to make our voices heard by showing up at the polls and bringing people that don't normally vote with us. One person, my good friend and CEO of Survival Dispatch, Chris Heaven says we need to bring one person to the polls that doesn't normally vote. And if we all do that, they can't stop us. They cannot stop us. So that's what we have to be, ready to do. Make a couple of adjustments here. So, anyways, I hope everybody's doing well tonight. We're really, really excited to have this live stream going, but we're just waiting. I know the audio works because we could hear Trump's elevator music earlier, so we're just waiting on them to get started. So we will continue to wait. So real quick, what are your predictions for what they're going to talk about tonight? Put it in the comments. We'd like to discuss it. Let's see what they're going to bring up. Oh, looks like.
All right. Hello, everyone.
Here we go.
So my apologies for the late start. We unfortunately had a massive distributed denial of service attack against our servers, and saturated all of our data lines. Like basically hundreds of gigabits of data were saturated. We think we've overcome most of that, and so it's now time to proceed. But as this massive attack illustrates, there's a lot of opposition to people just hearing what President Trump has to say, and but I'm honored to have this conversation. I want to emphasize it's a conversation, and it's really intended to just get a feel for what Donald Trump is just like in a conversation. It's hard to catch a vibe about someone if you just don't hear them talk in a normal way. And when there's an adversarial interview, like no one's themselves in an adversarial interview. And this is really aimed at kind of open-minded, independent voters who just trying to make up their mind. So you can understand like what is what is it just like to have a conversation. So honored to Donald, great to speak. We had a great conversation yesterday. As you mentioned yesterday, if we could just record that conversation and post it, it would have been excellent. And I hope we can have something like that today.
Well, I think we will. I'm pretty sure we will. And congratulations, because I see you broke every record in the book with so many millions of people. And it's an honor. We view that as an honor. And then you do want silencing of certain voices. Usually those are voices that have something to say that are constructive, oftentimes constructive. And so we have to consider it an honor. But congratulations on breaking every record in the book
for you
tonight.
Guys?
That's great.
Well, thank you. Maybe we could start off with, the assassination attempt, which was an incredible thing. And I have to say that, your actions after that assassination attempt were inspiring. You, instead of shying away from things, instead of ducking down, you were pumping your fist in the air and saying, fight, fight, fight. And I think that's, the president of the United States represents America, and I think that is America. That is strength under fire, and so that's a big part of the reason why I was excited to endorse you as the president of the United States for having another term here. Is that was just incredibly inspiring. But what was it like for you?
Not pleasant. I have to be honest. I said there was blood. I had more blood. I didn't know I had that much blood. The doctors later told me that the ear is a place that is a very bloody place if you're going to get hit. But in this case, it was probably the best alternative you could even think about, because it went at the right angle, and it was a hard hit. It was very I guess you would say surreal, but it wasn't surreal. You know, I was telling somebody you have instances like this or like a lot less than this where you feel it's a surreal situation. And I never felt that way. I knew immediately that it was a bullet. I knew immediately that it was at the ear.
Yeah.
And because it, you know, it hit very hard, but hit the ear. And I also heard people shout, "Bullets, bullets!" You know, get down, because I moved down pretty nicely, pretty quickly, and we had bullets flying right over my head after I went down. So I'm glad I went down. The bigger miracle was that I was looking in the exact direction of the shooter, and so it hit me at an angle that was far less destructive than any other angle. So that was the miracle. That was for those
Split
people that
second.
don't believe in God. I think we got to all start thinking about that. You have to, you know, I'm a believer now. I'm more of a believer, I think, and a lot of people have said that to me. A lot of great people have said that to me, actually.
Amen.
But it was amazing that I happened to be turned just at that perfect angle, and all because I put down a chart on immigration that showed that the numbers were so great. I love that chart even more
maybe
now
it's a
than I
sign. Maybe that's a sign. You know,
it's an immigration sign.
You highlighted a serious issue, and at that moment,
that's right.
the bullet missed your, you know, hit your ear, but you know, missed your head. I mean,
Well, the amazing thing is that the sign, I said, bring down that sign on immigration, and it was literally about an eighth of a second where it would be good, and after that it was going to be a disaster, no matter which way you were facing. But it just had that perfect angle, which was exactly at this shooter. Very sad situation, such a sad situation. As you know, we lost somebody that was great, Corey, who a firefighter, a great gentleman, a great trumper. He was just a fantastic family and a fantastic man. And a friend of mine came up, Elon, and said, "I'd like to give the family some kind of help." And I said, "That's great." He said, "Do you mind?" I said, "I don't mind at all." And he wrote out a check for $1 million, gave it to the wife. And, you know, she said, "This is really nice, but I'd rather have my husband back," which is a nice thing for somebody to say, to be honest. She's great. The family is great. And we raised a lot of money for them and for two other gentlemen are unbelievable people also. They were hit really badly. They thought they were not going to make it, and they did. The doctors in the Butler area, I tell you, they were incredible. They saved the two, and they were really hit tough, both of them equally. And we thought, my first question. The opposite side of the field and the podium, and he saw the smoke and the flame from the gun, immediately recognized it, and immediately took a shot. And it was one perfect shot from very far away. And if he didn't do that, Elon, he would have. I mean, if he would have, a lot of people, a lot more people could have been badly hurt and killed. So I have to take my hat off to him, because that's also a surreal. You know, he's been with them for 23 years, and he's never had anything like this. And all of a sudden, he has to act, and it's a very tough thing to act and to be shooting somebody. But he saw the gun, saw the smoke, saw the flame from the gun, very far away. I obviously has very good eyes. He's got very good vision, which I assume you have to have in that particular work. But he took aim very quickly, and it was, they say it was approximately 5 seconds from long range, one bullet. If that didn't happen, because the shooter had a lot of bullets, he had a lot of cartridges up there with him. So
Well,
Could have been very.
I mean,
Act
I
of
mean
God, guys. It was an
that's
act
clearly
of God.
he was very competent in taking that shot to stop the attempted assassination. But I mean, there does seem to be I mean some pretty significant failings elsewhere in the system. Like there's just no way that like how on earth does a shooter get on a roof 130 yards away? That seems crazy. I think most people people are wondering how on earth could such a thing happen.
Well, I view it as two ways. There should have been nobody on the roof. There were people,
Yeah.
because there were so many tens of thousands of people there. There were people that were seeing him, and there was one woman with a red shirt and
Right.
Trump all over
I
it,
saw
and
the video.
she's screaming. And that guy's got a gun. You saw it probably. There's a
No, I
guy
saw
up
the
there
video.
with a gun.
I mean,
There were
it's like
multiple people screaming that guy's got a gun, which is insane.
I mean, fine for my part, and I think probably many members of the public are wondering how the heck are, basically people wondering by pointing out there's a guy on the roof with a gun.
Yeah.
And they're seeing it, but somehow it's not being addressed. That does seem crazy.
Well, they're going to learn from this. The communication between the local police, who sort of had an idea, and then ultimately a man lifted himself up to the roof, could barely do it because he was pulling himself up, and he saw the man with the gun. The man with the gun pointed the gun at him. He thought he was probably going to get shot, but he was like pulling himself up, and because of that, he couldn't get to his gun. And he fell down, actually very badly hurt his leg, his ankle. I hear very badly, but he fell down. And he did, from what I understand, he did say there's a guy up there with a gun. And the shooting started very quickly after that. I think it forced the shooter to go maybe quicker. You're supposed to be a very good shot.
Yeah.
My sons, Don and Eric, they can't believe what happened, but they said from 130 yards, a bad shot would hit that target almost every time. They said it's like in golf, sinking a 2-foot putt.
Yeah, it's not a tough
for
shot.
an AR-15.
It's not a long
130 yards
shot.
is a
The
pot
Secret
shot.
Service
It's super
person
easy to
had
hit.
the long shot. He had a triple the distance actually. So it was a terrible thing. Look,
now the sniper had a 300 Win Mag, which is
hard.
much more
I have to
powerful
say this about the
round.
Secret Service. When I went down, and I went down based on I think they're screaming, but other people also, because people saw this happen. You had so many people. One of the miracles was that nobody ran. I mean, if a gun goes off, the crowd control people showed us this. When guns go off, and it does happen in stadiums at a soccer match or some kind of a match, everybody flees. They call it a stampede, like cattle. But everybody, and a lot of people get killed with those stampedes. We had more people than you'd have at some of these matches or these games, and nobody left. You had a small group behind us in the grandstand, and that was full. And you look at it as it was taking place, and normally they'd be running. They didn't leave. They saw that I was hurt. They saw a lot of blood, and they saw that I went down. And it's almost like they wanted to be with me. Well, out front, you had thousands, tens of thousands of people. As far as the eye could see, you had people in Butler, as far as the eye could see, and a lot of press too. There was many cameras on watching this. It's what makes it so different, because normally things happen that aren't good, but you never have a picture of it. Here we have all these cameras shooting it, so sort of amazing. But one of the interesting things was that you didn't have anybody flee. You didn't have anybody stampede. Nobody. And there were some people behind me. They stood up and they're looking like, I mean, I'll tell you, you want to have them in a foxhole with you. I want to meet some of those people because it's so different from what you heard. But so I was down. But the Secret Service guys, there were bullets flying right over my head. You could hear them go whizzing, and these guys came jumping on top
of the bullets
me,
going right
and a young lady,
head.
Kate.
It's pretty crazy, guys.
Would jump. They moved so fast, and let me tell you, that took tremendous courage. Now there was a lack of coordination. There was, obviously everybody understands that somebody that building should have been covered, and
I mean,
that was the big thing.
I mean, looking at the aerial views, that building would be like the #1 spot for a sniper. I mean, it's like if you were to pick like what is the favorite, what if you so if the goal is to assassinate, what's your favorite spot? That building, the
You're
roof of
right.
that building would be #1.
That would have been the spot.
It's like you can ask for a better
No,
location. It's like
no,
#1.
that would have been the spot.
Um,
You know what people think
yeah,
is when the local policeman, who, by the way, he really he did what he was supposed to do. He couldn't hold on any longer. And then when he got
yeah,
his head just peeking above, this guy standing there with a gun at his head. And when he fell down, again, hurt his ankle very badly, but he was making the calls. But what happened is the firing took place very soon. So what they
yeah,
think is that this guy ran to his site, which he had all planned out with the gun. He ran to the site and he started shooting fast. And maybe that's why he sort of missed. I mean, he uh,
yeah. But
he
as you
got
say,
me, but
he
it
would have
could have
hit. If
been
I
it
mean,
could have been a much
yeah.
bigger problem.
But he totally would have hit if you hadn't turned your head. So, like there was it was a very near thing.
It was a
So,
miracle. If
38
I hadn't
um,
turned
million,
my head,
guys.
yeah,
38
I would not be
million
talking
views
to you
already.
right now. As
That's
much as I like you,
insane.
exactly.
I would not.
Yeah,
I would not be talking to you.
maybe talking to me from another realm, perhaps.
Yeah, that's
Um,
right. We'd be talking from a
so,
different place. But it was a very terrible experience. The Butler Hospital, they did such a great job. The doctors were so good. Everybody was so good. There was a mistake. If somebody knew, because people were hearing, there was just a bad feeling that there was somebody was around. You know that story now. It's been pretty
yeah,
well.
yeah,
And
yeah,
if somebody could have said, because they've oftentimes said, like there'd be a lightning storm or something. Because I've done, I think, over 300. I think I did a lot more than that, but we did a lot. And oftentimes they'll say, "Sir, could you wait 10 minutes, please? Sir, could you wait 20 minutes? There's a storm overhead or lightning or something," right? And
yeah,
that happens
yeah,
often. And this would have been a perfect time for that to have happened, but it
yeah.
didn't. It didn't get coordinated. That was the problem.
Well, it was your. I think your actions in the heat of fire, and like what I found admirable there was that you can't fake bravery under such circumstances. The courage is instinctual or it is not. It's not a rehearsed action. And so I just want to say that I think a lot of people admire your courage under fire there. And
Well,
yeah, so
thank you very
yeah,
much. I appreciate it. I didn't think of it. I just wanted to get up and I wanted to stand up. I wanted to let people know. I felt I was good when they were on top of me, covering me, actually, very much covering me, and very bravely. But I wanted to get up. I said, "I want to get up," and they wanted. They have everything there. They wanted stretcher. I didn't like the stretcher, and I knew I was hit in the ear, but I knew I wasn't hit anywhere else. They felt I was hit someplace else
yeah,
because it was such a lot of blood, and they were sure that I was hit someplace else. And they were saying, "Sir, you were hit more than the ear." I said, "Nope, I was hit in the ear. I want to get up. Let me get up." And so I got up, and the crowd didn't know what to think. I mean, this was so many people, and you could see they were confused. They didn't know what to think, and I wanted to let them know I was okay. It was very important for me to let them
yeah,
know that, and they went wild. You've seen the after. They didn't go wild when I
yeah,
got up because they didn't know, was I alive. You really couldn't tell when I stood up before the
This
hand,
could be
before
one of
the
the most iconic
the fist in
pictures
the air.
of
Uh,
my
they didn't know if I
lifetime
was alive.
when it comes to American
Nobody did.
politics.
And when I put the fist up, they were just relieved and happy and thrilled, and the place went crazy. It was pretty
yeah.
amazing. It was a
Well,
terrible thing, but it
it
was
was
really nice.
incredibly moving. Yeah. Um, well, and I mean, speaking of the sort of slide that got you to turn that uh, saved your life, really, was the illegal immigration
Right,
slide. Maybe this,
that's right.
maybe this is worth talking about that,
It
since
was. It was.
that slide
You're
saved your
right.
life,
No,
basically.
the illegal immigration saved my life. You're right, but I
I
had to
know
be at
that's
that exact angle.
I mean, that's a great one. Saved by illegal immigration.
The incredible
100%.
thing though, when you talk about the odds, you had to be exactly at that angle. But the
Yeah,
incredible thing is that the chart, I used it less than 20% of the time. It was just a moment.
yeah,
It's always on my left, never my right, and it's always at the end of the speech. So here
Yeah.
we have it. It's on the right, not the left. It's at the beginning, not the end. And even the people that put it up, they were unprepared, and they did a great job. They got it up immediately, fortunately. But I looked to the right, and the bullet came whizzing by, hitting my ear. So it was amazing. But when you think of the odds of that, and
Yeah. Yeah.
you know that normally you wouldn't use it. Normally I wouldn't have the thing, and then it
Yeah.
would have been a very different story. It's very much I I say an act of God. It's a miracle that it happened, and I'm
Sure.
honored by
Amen.
it. I'm honored by it.
Well, what were you about to say about illegal immigration before you were rudely interrupted with a
Well, I was
bullet?
going to say how good the numbers were. By the way, we're going back to Butler, and we're going to go
Great.
back in October. We're all set up, and the people are fantastic in Butler. It's a great area. Great, these are incredible people. Like the three that, in the case of Corey killed, and the other two, the families are. I got to know them a little bit, and the families are great. But we're going back to Butler, and I think I'll probably start by saying, as I was saying,
As, yeah, as you
prior
were
to
saying.
being so
So,
horribly interrupted.
yeah.
But
Yeah. So rudely interrupted by an
yeah,
assassination
so it was.
attempt.
But no, but the chart,
Some people have no manners.
Elon, the chart was just a chart that in my last week we had the best illegal
Welcome, guys.
immigration numbers, meaning stopping. It was at the lowest. You've seen the chart. It's
Go ahead
become
and give us
quite
a
a famous
thumbs
Yeah.
chart,
up
Yeah.
but
on this
that was the
stream to help
lowest
the
Yeah.
point
algorithm.
ever recorded.
We'll keep
It
on
was
going.
a
Keep on
really,
giving us thumbs
I
up.
mean, I was very proud of those numbers. And then you see what happened with these people, Kamala and Joe. You see what happened. They just let it go. I had remain in Mexico policies. I had all these different policies that was so good. Uh, Guys like Tom Holman and
Hey, Prepper
Brandon
27,
Judd
welcome to
from
the
Border
stream.
Patrol.
Glad to have you.
These are all people that they've been on television. They says the best numbers we've ever had. We had so many different checks, catch and release in Mexico, not the United. We had catch and release in the United States. We had it in Mexico. We had so many things. We had things where many people come in there, they have contagious diseases. We had everything passed. If you
Yeah,
have
go
a
ahead and get those
contagious disease,
likes
I'm
spamming,
sorry, but
guys.
we cannot
All of
allow
you
you
guys in the
into the
stream like
country.
this
So
stream
we
to
were
help us
setting
out.
Yeah.
literally records, and all I was doing is showing that, and I use it sometimes,
Sure.
and in this case, I'm glad I used it. I can tell you that, but they were fantastic numbers. But I'm going to sleep with that chart always. I'll be sleeping with that chart. That chart was very important for a lot of reasons.
Well, I mean, would it be accurate to say that you're supportive of legal immigration, but that but we also need to shut down illegal immigration, and especially unvetted illegal
Yes,
immigration, because and that's not the same as saying that everyone who's an illegal immigrant is bad. In fact, I think most people who are illegal immigrants are actually good, but you can't tell a difference unless there's a solid vetting of who comes across the border.
That's absolutely true.
Does that accurately
100%.
represent your position?
I say it
Okay.
very simply. They have to come in legally. They have to be checked.
Yeah.
Because look, Kamala was the border czar. Now she's denying it. Everything that I
That
do,
was a pretty hilarious
she's saying
comment.
she was strong on the
Illegal immigration
border.
saved his
We're going to
life.
be strong. Well, she doesn't have to say
We
it. She
really
could close
appreciate
it
that he
up
gave
right now.
credit,
They could do things right now. It's horrible.
to Almighty on that, because,
No
man,
tax on
talk about
tips,
turning
and
your
all of
head
a
at the
sudden
last
she's making
second.
a speech and there will be no tax on tips. I said that months ago. And by the way, they had just the opposite. They had not only tax on tips, but they hired 88,000 IRS agents, and many of them were assigned to go get waitresses and caddies and all of this on tips. They have a policy. They had a policy that they were really going to go after you, and
That's
were really
absolutely
harassing
correct,
people
guys.
horribly.
Absolutely
And then
correct.
all of a sudden, for politics, she says, she comes out with what I said, which I think is terrible, and I think it's also hitting them very hard. These people are fake. Now they're also saying they did a good job in the border. We had the worst numbers in the history of the world, not of our country. There's never been a country in history that has had a catastrophe like this. We've had,
Hey,
I believe,
Anna
and I think you believe this
PB.
too. You
Hey,
hear
welcome
12
to the
million, 13.
stream.
I
Hope
believe
you're
it's over
enjoying
20 million people came
the
into our
stream.
country.
We're going to
Many coming
do
from
minimal
jails,
commenting,
from
but watch
prisons,
this.
from mental institutions, or a bigger version of that is
Yeah.
insane asylums, and many are terrorists. And I'll tell you what, they're coming not just from South America, they're coming from Africa, they're coming from all over the world. They're coming from Asia, they're
Yeah.
coming from the Middle East, they're coming from countries that are uh, stupidly and horribly bombing Israel October 7th. They're coming from all over the world. And you know, you look at it's so sad October 7th because it should have never happened.
Yeah.
It's so sad
Sure.
when you look at Ukraine. It should have never happened. We have a defective
Absolutely.
government. These are defective people, and they're not people that should be running it. But where you see it the best is the border, because you have millions of people coming in a month, and then she gets up and she tries to pretend like she's going to do something. She had 3.5 years. And by the way, they have another 5 months that they can do something, but they
Yeah.
won't do anything. It's all talk. She's
No.
incompetent and he's incompetent. And frankly, I think that she's more incompetent than he is. And that's saying something because he's not too good.
Yeah. No, I think it is essential to have a secure border. I mean, you're really not a country unless you have a
Correct.
secure border.
That's 100%
And
true.
And
uh,
secure elections,
you
too.
know, yeah, absolutely secure elections. And so it's just essential to have a real border, or we can't function as a country, and our service, our central services are being overwhelmed in a lot of cities. Um, as we were talking about earlier, I think having a legal immigration process that is smooth and efficient and done well, and speaking as someone who is a legal immigrant, and I think I mean, like one way to think of it is, who do you want on your team?
That's
Who do you want on
hilarious.
Team America? And I think we want to just say, okay, we want to let in people who are going to, be great contributors to our society and to our economy,
Right.
and and who do you want on the team? And it's not to say that, like in my opinion, actually, I'd say like probably most of the illegal immigrants actually are actually good, hardworking people. That's my opinion. But some are not, and you just have this sort of adverse selection process where, if somebody's if somebody's like you know uh, has a career in theft or robbery, I don't understand what's taken them so long to get here, because we're such a target-rich environment. I
That's
mean,
funny.
why
That
aren't
meme is
more
funny.
people who have a career in,
That one's getting saved.
bad things coming here sooner? Because it's a piece of cake to go rob, houses in LA or New York, compared to other parts of the world. And and in a lot of places in America, if you try to stop the person who's robbing you, you'll be arrested.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's insane.
It's right. I mean, what's happening with crime, and our police are so good, but they're not allowed to do their job. But I have to tell you, Elon, I
They're
hate
not.
to say it because it's such a downer to say it. I hate to say it. I hate it, but uh, you have a lot of people that just shouldn't be. I think it's a much bigger number than you think. They're
I
allowing,
think you're
again,
right.
they're
Yeah.
allowing people from their jails. And if you were running one of these countries where they're coming from, you would have had all of them. As an example, Venezuela, their crime is down 72%. They're taking their drug dealers. They're taking, frankly, their
They're
prisoners. They're
offloading their
emptying out their
worst to
prisons.
the
They're
United States,
taking
guys. It's
their
not that we're
criminals, their
getting
murderers,
families.
their rapists, and
We're
they're
getting
Yeah.
delivering them
criminals
into.
But
because
that's what
they're jailbreaking
Castro did.
Yeah, well,
and
he
they're
did
sending
on
them
a much
north to
smaller scale.
us.
Yeah.
You know, it was a much
What are you
smaller
Yeah.
guys'
scale.
thoughts on
But
that?
this is a
It's
massive
just
scale
it's
because this is
crazy
being
to
done
me.
worldwide. But here's what's happening: crime all over the world is down. And wait till you see the numbers that we have. You know, this is migrant crime. This is crime that's going to be.
Yeah.
And I saw it today in New York where somebody was knifed with raped the girlfriend of a man that stood there watching in New York in one of the shelters, and started
Sure.
pulling out the knives, and bad things happen today. But this is happening every day. These are rough people. These are people that are in jail for
Yeah.
murder and all sorts of things, and they're releasing them into our country, and they're telling them, if you come back, we're going to kill you. We're going to give you the death penalty or kill you. So they don't want to come back. But these are rough people.
Yeah.
These are criminals that make our criminals look like nice people, and it's horrible what they're doing. And she's in charge of it because now she's trying to say she
Sure.
had nothing to do with it, and she's such a liar because She was called the border czar the first day, and it was on the headlines of every newspaper. She's the border czar, and she never even went there. She went to one location, which had nothing to do with
That's
where the
absolutely
problem
true.
is. She went in and out, I
Right.
guess, because she was
Biden
getting a
said,
lot
"I'm
of
putting
pressure,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
the best
had nothing
person
to do
most
with the
equipped for
problem.
the
Yeah.
job
But
in
she
charge
was
of
the
the
border
border,
czar,
the border
and
czar,
people
Yeah, yeah.
can't
Harris."
allow them to get away with their disinformation campaign. Now she's trying to say that she wasn't really involved, and the whole thing is horrible. She was totally in charge. She could have shut the border down without him. He didn't know what he was doing anyway, so he wouldn't have even known
Yeah.
what happened. You could shut the border down; he
Yeah.
wouldn't even know the difference. But uh, the fact is that she was border czar. But if you don't have to call her
Yes.
that, the fact is you could just call her. She was in charge of the border, and the border was the worst
Right.
ever.
It's simply not working.
No, it's
I mean,
horrible.
whether it's a question of intention or competence, either way, we don't have a secure border, and we have people streaming over like it looks like a World War Z zombie apocalypse at times. And sometimes you got to sort of wonder, like, is it real or not? So because you see things, you're like, is it real? So I went to the border at Eagle Pass, and I saw for myself in Texas, and I was like, okay, it's real. I'm like seeing this in real time. I actually posted the video like just live. I just flew there one day and just to see, hey, is this made up or real? And I'm just seeing people stream across the border, and I have to say, at least the people that I saw did not look friendly. So
These are
people
people.
can look at my video and say, hey,
Yeah.
these people look friendly. I don't look super friendly. So
These are people that
um,
Elon would not be the same man if he had to walk across the street and look these people in the eye. These are rough people. These are really rough people coming across. And I know rough
Not
people.
families,
And these are
military-aged
people that we don't
men
want in our country.
from
And
all over
the
the world,
caravans are coming in, and they're putting
terrorists.
and who's doing this are the heads of the countries. And you would be doing
yeah,
it, and so would I. And everyone would say, "Oh, what a terrible
That's the
thing to
crazy thing
say."
to me
The
is
fact
that
is,
some
it's brilliant
CIA
for them because they're taking all of
targeters are
their
saying that
bad
it's a
people, really
massive
bad
amount
people. And
flowing
I
over
hate to say this,
the border that
the
are
reason the
terrorists,
numbers are
and we're in a really,
much
really
bigger
rough
than you
spot
would think is they're also taking their
because terrorist
non-productive
attacks
people.
are
Now, these
going to
aren't people
happen.
that will kill you. We have enough of them, but these are people that are non-productive. They are just not productive. I mean, for whatever reason, they're not
yeah, yeah,
workers, or they don't want to work, or whatever. And these countries are getting rid of non-productive people in the caravans in many cases, and they're also getting rid of their murderers and their drug dealers and the people that are
yeah,
really brutal people. And they're coming into our country
yeah,
at levels that have never been seen before. And I saw an ad just before I got on the air. I'm walking over here, and I saw an ad by Kamala saying how she is going to provide border security. Where has she been for 3.5 years? For 3.5 years,
yeah. No, no.
we have 20 million people
I
poured
think
in.
is
It's a terrible
Yeah, I
thing.
think this, frankly, I think this is a fundamental existential issue for the United States. And if we have another 4 more years of open borders, and it's going to be even worse with another 4 more years, it's going to be even worse than it's been for the past, 3.5 years. I'm not sure we've got a country
You don't
left
have a country
at that
left.
point.
Elon, if they get in, you will have 50 to 60 million people from all over the world, not South America only. We think of South America, we think of Honduras and El Salvador, Guatemala, and Mexico, the four. But it's not that. It's everywhere. They're coming in from
Yeah,
everywhere. And I had to stay in
yeah, I think
Mexico.
this is a super important
Yeah.
point. Like people, it's like basically when I went down there, I was like, well, where are people from? It's like almost no one was from Mexico. To
No,
be clear,
Mexico
it's,
less
it's just it's just
less
it's
than
just the
the others.
border. It's just the border with Mexico, but the people coming in, it's Earth, the rest of Earth, and America is only about 4 or 5% of the population of Earth. It would only take a few percent of the rest of Earth to overwhelm everything in the
We're
U.S.
already
So
overwhelmed, Elon. We're overwhelmed. You had to see the
He's right.
news
We don't
tonight
even have an
about New
idea of how
York.
bad
New
this
York, and
is.
I
It's
love that
horrible.
place,
We
and what they're
have
doing to it is
millions.
horrible. What they're doing to it, and all the courts do is they
yeah,
try and focus on Trump. Okay, then let's focus on Trump, who did nothing wrong. I complain about a rigged election. Elon, what's happened is unbelievable. You have from Africa, from the Congo, they're coming from the Congo, and 22 people came in from the Congo recently, and they're murderers, and they're dropped. They drop them. They take them out of jails which is very expensive, to maintain the jails, although they don't do too much maintaining, I can tell you. But they take them out of jails, prisons, they take them out and they bring them to the United States. They deposit them in the United States and say, don't ever come back or you're going to be executed. And they don't want to come back, but they won't come back.
Sure.
But they're coming from Africa. They're coming from Asia. They're coming from the Middle East. They're coming from South America.
Well, just
They're
Earth,
coming from
rest of Earth,
everywhere.
basically.
And there are a lot of
Yeah,
really
everywhere on
bad
Earth.
ones.
It's just an everywhere on Earth thing, and it's just not possible for the United States to absorb everyone from Earth, or even a few percent of the rest of Earth. It's just not possible. So
Well, Elon, we're going to have
that's
to finish this up. We're going to have the largest deportation in history of this country, and we have no choice. Otherwise, we're going to have a country what they've done to our country. Think of it, with in Venezuela and in some of these other countries, crime is down 50, 60, 70, 80%. And you would be the same. You would have.
yeah.
I'll tell you what. Venezuela has not gotten rid of all of them. They've gotten rid of about 70% of their really bad people. Their jails are about 50% put into the United States. The same with other countries.
Sure.
Some are at 30%, some are at 50%. They're all different. But the bottom line is they're all going to be at 100%. Why wouldn't you put 100% of
Yeah.
And they're doing it right now while this third-rate phony candidate. Don't forget, I beat Biden. He failed in the debate miserably. And, some people said, oh, gee, it's too bad. It's too bad he did so badly, or I did well in the debate. The first night they said, wow. One of the people at CNN said that was the greatest debate performance I've ever witnessed. And then 2 days later, they didn't talk about that. They just said he was bad. But that's okay. That's the way I get treated. And I don't mind that at all. What I can tell you is this. We cannot have a Democrat. We cannot have her. She's incompetent. She's as bad as Biden in a different. Look, she hasn't done an interview since this whole scam started. And say what you want. This was a coup. This was a coup of a president of the United States.
Right
he
about
didn't want to
this.
leave, and they said we
Kamala
can do it
Harris
the
has
nice
not
way,
received a
or we can
single
do it the
vote.
hard way.
Yeah,
A single
they just took him out back
from
behind the shed and
anybody.
basically shot him.
She
No, what
failed
they
so
did was this
miserably
guy, and I'm no
the
fan of his, and he was a horrible president, the worst president in history. And one of the reasons he was so
in the
bad, first of all,
primaries for the
the Israeli
Democratic
attack
Party
would have
in
never happened.
2020,
Russia would
2019 and
never
2020.
have attacked
She dropped
Ukraine,
out before the
and we'd have
race
no
even
inflation,
started.
and we wouldn't have had the
She's
Afghanistan mess. If you think of it,
incompetent, and
and
she
we wouldn't have
has
had
basically
Afghanistan. But we think of it.
done whatever she needed
You
to
take
get
a few
up
of those
on the
events
top.
away, and we have a different
And
world.
that is
We would also have
who
no
we have running for president.
inflation was
They're
caused
trying to
by
make us
oil.
believe that this person that was completely and totally
I think you're making an excellent
unpopular,
point here,
less
which
popular
is that,
than Biden at
when
the end,
other countries
all of a sudden is
that are,
beating Trump. It's insane to me.
thinking about invading or doing bad things. When they're thinking about that, they're thinking about, okay, what's the American president going to do? And do they fear the American president, or is there someone they do not respect and do not fear? And I think they would rightfully be. I mean, but look at that the footage of the assassination. They're like, okay, President Trump is like, don't mess with me. I mean, that's like. Whereas I think people are not going to be, and they obviously have not been at all intimidated by Biden, and they certainly will not be intimidated by Kamala. And you have to really think of that in the context of global security. That's if the American president is
Look at the media, man.
someone
Look at these
that
headlines.
like evil dictators
Trump's
are
interview
scared
with Musk
of,
devolves
that makes a
into yet
huge
another
difference to the
catastrophe.
security of the world.
So I had a good relationship with Putin, despite the Russia hoax that lasted for over 2 years. Just a hoax created by Hillary Clinton and Adam Shifty Schiff, some just bad people, just sick people, frankly. I mean, Schiff is a sick person. He's going to end up probably being a senator. It's hard to believe. The whole thing is hard to believe. But, they put our country in danger with that stuff, too. They actually, when they make up stories, and you have to fight your way out of it for a long time. But I know Putin very well. I got along with him very well. He respected me, and it's just one of those things. And we would talk a lot about Ukraine. It was the apple of his eye. But I said, don't ever do it. Don't ever do it. I shut down Nord Stream 2. That was the big oil pipeline, the biggest pipeline in the world going all over Europe. I shut it down. Biden came, and then they say, I loved Russia. I was a friend of Putin, and I loved Russia. No, he actually said to me one time, he said, if you're my friend, I'd hate to see you as an enemy. I shut down his pipeline. the biggest pipeline. They were looking at that
Yeah.
to fund, and this pathetic president gets in there, and the first thing he did, one of the early things he did, is he shut down Keystone XL pipeline, which is our pipeline that would have employed 48,000 people, pipeline
And would have
workers.
driven the
Shut it
gas
down.
prices
That
down to
was,
next to
a
nothing.
massive job
Record
that
level.
Obama refused to allow.
Yeah.
I allowed it in my first week because it was jobs and it moved oil. And by the way, in a much more environmentally friendly way. It's underground. It's not a truck that catches on fire or a train that catches on fire. But think of it. He shut down the XL pipeline, the Keystone XL pipeline.
Yeah.
He shuts that down, and he approves the Russian pipeline.
Yeah, it doesn't make any
Right?
sense. It's inconsistent. Certainly, but I mean, I think it's just worth emphasizing, to listeners, the immense importance of whether the United States president is intimidating or not intimidating, and how much that matters to global security, because there's some real tough characters out there, and if they don't think the American president is tough, they will do what they want to do.
I know every one of them.
And that puts it puts the
Yeah.
whole world in danger.
Elon,
That
I
is
know
a
every
key
one of them,
point.
and I know them
That
well.
is
I know
such
Putin,
a
I know
key
President
point.
Xi, I know Kim Jong-un
We
of North Korea. I
should
know every one
have
of them.
someone
And
who
let me tell you,
has the
people will say, "Oh, this is terrible." He
ability
said,
to
"I'm
act.
not saying anything good or
Trump's
bad. They're
killing
at the top
of
of their
Qasem
game. They're
Soleimani,
tough. They're smart.
al-Baghdadi,
They're vicious,
sent
and
messages
they're
to
going to
the
protect
terrorist
their
groups that
country,
were
whether they
trying to
love
do
their
harm,
country. They probably do.
and
It's just a
it
different form of
worked.
love, but they're going to
And
protect
you
their
never get
country.
into
But
wars
these are
when
tough
you show
people at
strength.
the
You
top
only
of their
get into
game.
wars
And when they
there's
see a
weakness,
Kamala
and
or when
that's
they
important.
see Biden, Sleepy Joe, they can't even believe it. They can't believe this happened. All the stuff that you're seeing now, all the horror that you look at Israel, they're all waiting for an attack from Iran. Iran would not be attacking, believe me. When I was there, and I say it with respect because I think we would have been good with Iran. I don't want to do anything bad to Iran, but they knew not to mess around. Iran was broke because I told China, if you buy from Iran oil, it's all about the oil. That's where the money is. But if you buy oil from Iran, you're not going to do any business with the United States. And I meant it. And they said, we'll pass.
Yeah.
They didn't buy oil. Other countries, likewise,
Sure.
you want to buy, you're not doing business with the United States. And they were at a point where they had no money for Hamas. They had no money for Hezbollah. They had no money for any of these instruments of terror. And it was amazing. In fact, there were articles when I was leaving, which is hard to believe, actually, especially when you look at what's happened to our country. Our country is so bad right now. It's such a different place. We were respected. Think of it. 4 years ago, we were so respected to a point where when I said don't buy oil, they didn't buy oil, but they had no money, and Israel would have never been attacked. It is zero chance. And again, I said to Vladimir Putin, I said, don't do it. You can't do it, Vladimir. You do it, it's going to be a bad day. You cannot do it. And I told him things that what I do, and he said, no way. And I said, way. And it's the last time we ever had the conversation. He would never have done. I got along well with him. I hope to get along well with him again. Getting along well with them is a good thing, not a bad thing. I got along well with Kim Jong-un. When I met with President Obama just before entering, it's a sort of a ritual. And I sat down with him and we talked. It was supposed to be for a very short period of time. It turned out to be a long period of time. I said, what's the biggest problem? He said, North Korea. I had that problem worked out very quickly. It was nasty at the beginning with Rocket Man and, all the different things.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden I got a call.
Those were some epic tweets, by the way.
Yeah, they were. No, they were epic everything.
I'd
He
like to
said,
point out
he said that he has a red
Trump,
button
while he
on
was
his
great
desk. I said,
in
I
domestic
have a red
policy,
button on my desk
I
too,
think
but
actually
my
his
red button
strongest
is much
stuff was
bigger
actually
and
on
my
the
red
foreign
button
policy
works.
front.
And then I
The
called him
strength
Little
he
Rocket
showed
Man of
and
Little
being
Rocket Man.
able to
Anyway,
go into
here's the
places
bottom
that
line. All of a
presidents weren't
sudden I
able
got
to
a
go
call
into
from him.
previously.
And they
having
said they want to meet. They want to meet me. And we met,
brass
Yeah.
balls
as
to
you
do
remember, we met in
is a huge
Singapore. We
deal.
met also in
And,
Vietnam.
he is
And
very
I got
strong on
along
the
with him
foreign
great.
policy
We were in
front
no
because
danger.
he
But President
exudes
Obama,
strength. And
President Obama thought we were going to end up in a
he
war,
doesn't
a
he
nuclear war
doesn't
with him.
take
And
no
let
for
me
an
tell you, he's
answer.
got a lot of
He's
nuclear
very, very
stuff too.
shrewd in
He's
his
got plenty
dealings.
of nuclear. He
Whether
can
or
do
not you
plenty
like
of
his
damage.
personality or not,
So
the
Yes,
fact
I mean, it's
remains
because
we didn't get into a new war.
people
We're into new wars
Kim
left and right
Kim
now
Jong Un,
because
they
we're
respond to
showing
strength,
weakness.
not weakness.
Well,
And
He and I
if you
he and I
project
had a good
strength, they,
relationship.
you're good.
Remember,
Yeah.
I met him and we walked onto his land. Nobody ever walked onto his land before. I walked onto. I wouldn't say.
Yeah, that
Let's bring
was
up
cool.
Secret Service again. I wouldn't say they were thrilled when I did that. I walked onto his land, and it was an amazing period. But we were not in danger with him because of me. I always
Yeah.
say that we have enemies on the outside and we have enemies on the inside. We have some really bad people in our government and people that are and controlling of the people. I mean, I'd mention names, but I really don't want to give them the credit. But we have some really bad, and I say they're more dangerous than Russia and China. If you have a smart president, a president that gets it, we are not in danger from those countries because they need us and they need our help. I mean, we forced Obama, if you think about it, Obama and Biden and Bush to a certain extent, in all fairness, forced Russia and China. And if you're a history student, the first thing you learn is you cannot let Russia and China align. But then they also got, if you take a look, Iran, and they have North Korea. That's, they call it the axis of evil. In the old days, you had the axis of evil. Here we have a modern day axis of evil. These are powerful countries, very heavy nuclear, which is the biggest threat.
Yeah.
The biggest threat is not global warming, where the ocean's going to rise one eighth of an inch over the next 400 years. And you'll have more oceanfront property, right? The biggest threat is not that. The biggest threat is nuclear warming, because we have 5 countries
Well,
now that
yeah.
have significant nuclear power, and we have to not allow anything to happen with stupid people like Biden. Biden did something with Russia. There was no chance of him ever going in. And when I left, and then after I left, they started forming big armies on the border with Ukraine, right? And I looked at that, and I thought he was doing that because Putin's a good negotiator. I thought he was doing that to negotiate. But then Biden started saying such stupid things. For instance, he said that it can be a NATO country. Now, Russia, for as long as there's been NATO, has said we're never going to agree to that. And we go right up front and say that. And we did things and said things through this president with a low IQ, very low IQ. He had a low IQ 30 years ago, by the way, but now he might not even have a IQ at all. There's nothing on the board that goes this low. He said things that were so stupid that war would have been that war had zero chance of happening if I were there. Zero chance. He was saying
Yeah.
everything the opposite. And it's so sad because many more people have been killed in Ukraine than you read about. You don't read about how bloody it is and how disaster.
Sure.
Hey, look, just in the 2 armies, you lost 500,000 people. And Ukraine's having a hard time. Ukraine, I don't know if you saw the article recently, and it's true. You don't hear the true story, but if you think about it, Russia's gone. Russia defeated Germany with us, and they defeated Napoleon. They've been around a long time. They're a big fighting force, and it's very unfair. And Ukraine now doesn't have enough men. They're now using young men and very old men to fight, and we're in a very bad position. And I'm not going to blame exclusively, but I can tell you I could have stopped that, and a smart president could have stopped that. It wouldn't have happened. But we had a man that actually made it. It made it more prevalent. It was so bad. The words that
See
he
what
was
people are
using,
saying in the comments on
the
this
stupid
video.
threats coming from a stupid face that he was using. I said, this guy's going to cause us a war. He's going to cause us. And let me tell you, it can lead to World War III. That can lead to World War III. The Middle East can lead to. We have numerous places that could end up in a World War III right now for no reason whatsoever.
No, I think you're right. I think people underrate the risk of World War III, and it's just when you're looking at the risk of global thermonuclear warfare, it's game over for humanity, and it's something that people have, I think, after the end of the Cold War, people have become complacent about, but they actually have forgotten that there are currently a lot of nuclear missiles that have targeting parameters for the United States from other
100%.
countries.
And one of the things
And
we're going to do is we're going to build an Iron Dome over us. Israel has it. We're going to have the best Iron Dome in the world. We need it, and we're going to make it all in the United States. But we're going to have protection. because it just takes one maniac to, start something. We're going to have protection, and we're going to have. Why shouldn't we have an Iron Dome? Israel has one. Some other places
Yeah,
have one that nobody even knows about, frankly. But Israel has it. We're going to have an Iron Dome. But with all of that being said, to me that's so important, the most important. But with all of that being said, the election's coming up, and the people want to hear about the economy and the fact that they
absolutely, sure.
can't buy groceries because they don't have enough money to buy groceries. The inflation has killed them. Food prices are up 50, 60, even 100% in some cases. And
What do you
this
guys think the
stupid
biggest?
administration
Put in the
allowed this
comments
to
real
happen.
quick
And it's a
what
shame.
you think the
And that's the
biggest
thing that people
issue
most care about, in
of
my opinion.
this
They care
election
about the border a
is.
lot.
Just
And we
prioritize. Give me
discussed
your
the border
top
at great length.
two
It's
if
nice
you
to have
could
a
Yeah,
put in the
forum like this
comments
where I
here,
can discuss something
and
at length.
let's
And by the way, you
let's
think
see what
Biden
everybody
could do
says.
this
For
interview? You
me, it
think
would be
that
number one
Kamala could
is
do this
the
interview? They would take
economy.
a pass
Number
on
no,
two
you.
is
they
the
could not.
border
So
because the
they
border
don't
is
need
just it's
Elon.
so
They
important.
don't need Elon screaming out questions. It's pretty sad when you think that somebody that does this for a living can't answer a question or is afraid to do an interview. And in her case, with a very friendly interview, she's got all friendly interviewers. It's pretty sad.
Yes,
But the
absolutely.
big thing now is the
Well,
economy, Elon.
yeah,
And as much as
yeah,
I mean, I view nuclear as the single most important thing, but a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't understand that. But it doesn't have to. If I understand it, that's all you need. Because if I was president, you're not going to have that kind of a problem. But the thing that they really is making them angry is what Kamala and Biden have allowed to happen to the economy. It's a disaster with inflation. The inflation, it
yeah,
doesn't matter what you make. The inflation is eating you alive. If you're a worker or if you're just a middle income person, you can't afford. 4 years ago, 5 years ago, people were saving a lot of money. Today, they're using
yeah.
all their money and borrowing money just to live. It's a horrible thing
Right.
that's happening, and we'll end that
Well, I think
quickly.
a lot of yeah, a lot of people just don't understand where inflation comes from. Inflation comes from government overspending because the checks never bounce when it's written by the government. So if the government spends far more than it brings in, that increases the money supply, and if the money supply increases faster than the rate of goods and services,
That's right.
that's inflation. Um, so really, we need to have we need to reduce our government spending, and we need to re-examine. I think we need like a government efficiency commission to say like, hey, where are we spending money that's sensible? Where is it not
Right.
sensible? And we need to live within our means. We're currently adding, I think, $1 trillion to the deficit roughly
Right.
every 100 days.
That's right.
And the interest payments on the national debt have now exceeded the defense budget. It's on the order of $1 trillion,
It's interest.
and it keeps
Yeah, I
growing.
rebuilt our military, largely rebuilt our military, did a great job on it, which was so important. We had jets, we had fighters that were, and bombers that were 70 years old. And we did a great job in that. Then by the way, then we gave 85 billion of it back to Afghanistan, if you can believe it. We gave them 85 billion. They're one of the largest sellers
Yeah,
of military equipment in the world. They're selling what we gave them. That was one of the most embarrassing days in the history of our country. But if you think about, let's go back to the economy. We have to bring energy
yeah,
prices down. Energy started at the price of gasoline. Now your cars don't require too much gasoline, so you have a good, and you do make a great product. I have to say, I have to be honest with you.
thank
That
you.
doesn't mean everybody should have an electric car, but these are minor details. But your product is incredible. But the
Thank you.
gasoline, Elon, is the cost of energy. Not only gasoline, it's the cost of heating your house and cooling your house. That has
Sure.
to come down. It's gone up 100%, 150, and 200%, and that has to come down. When that comes down, and we're going to
Yeah,
drill, baby, drill. They stopped drilling, and then they went back to drilling because they went back to the Trump policy. But if they won the day after they get into office, this country will go out of business because they're going to go to an energy policy that's not sustainable. Wind and different things. You're not going to have anything.
yeah,
And I know you're a big fan of the AI, and I have to say
yeah,
that AI, and this is shocking to me, but AI requires twice the energy that the country already produces for everything. So you're going to have to build. We're going to have to build a lot of energy if our country will be competitive with China, because that's our primary competitor for this on the AI. You're
Sure.
going to need a lot of
Well, I mean,
electricity. You're going to need tremendous
yeah,
electricity, like almost double what we produce now for the whole country, if you can believe it.
sure. Well, just going, back to this, like this basic thing, which that people try to make it sound complicated, but it's not. But inflation is caused by government
Right.
overspending. Would you agree that we need to take a look at government spending
Yes.
and have perhaps a government efficiency commission that just tries to make the spending sensible and so the country lives within its means, just like a
The
person does?
waste is incredible, and nobody
It
negotiates
is.
prices. You used to have a lot of people making jets, and you end up with two companies, and they'll probably try and merge at some point. I mean, I went through it like Air Force, just a thing like Air Force One. One of the first documents they asked me to sign, a general auction. Sir, would you please sign this document? And what is it? Air Force One. That's with Boeing, which is basically two planes, two 747s. And the price was
Yeah.
$5.7 billion for two planes. Now they're
Wow.
highly sophisticated.
That's
They're
insane.
even nicer than your plane, okay? But much more sophisticated. They're very, I won't say what's on it, but they got a lot of stuff on it. Anyway, but it's 5.7.
That's a crazy
It's a
number.
crazy number, but I said, I'm not going to pay 5.7. I'm not going to do it. I said, who made the deal? Obama and his people. I said, well, then I know the deal's no good. I'm not going to do it. And over a course of about 4 weeks, by my saying I'm not going to do it, I got the price reduced by $1.6 billion for the exact same plane, other than we had a nicer paint job, if you want to know the truth. But for the exact same plane, I saved one. And I said to Boeing, man, you guys must make a lot of money if you can reduce the price by that. But now what I do hear is that they're going back to the Biden administration and wanting big cost overruns, because they see these dopey suckers in there, and they'll end up getting some of the money back. But I shaved it by $1.6 billion for the exact same plane. And you can now take that and multiply that out times thousands of other items.
Multiply it by
Yeah,
a
the
zillion,
numbers are
and yeah,
astronomical. I agree with you.
And that's true.
Well,
I can
if
remember when I
so,
was
so I mean,
in the military,
I
we'd
think it
find
would be
stuff
great
in
to just have a
our
government
spare
efficiency
parts
commission that takes a look at these things
inventory that
and
we
just
way overpaid for because
ensures
of
that the
government
taxpayer
contracts.
money,
Government
the
contracts are
taxpayers'
rife with
hard-earned money, is spent in a good way.
overpaying for things that people pay
And
way less
I'd be
for.
happy to help out on
And
such a
you
commission
need
I'd
if,
love
somebody
it.
if it
like
were
that.
formed.
Well, you're the greatest cutter. I mean, I look at what you do. You walk in and you just say, "You want to quit?" They go on
Yeah.
strike. I won't mention the name
And
of
for
the
those of
company,
you
but they
that
go on strike, and
have
you
the
say, "That's
sound
okay.
muted, you
You're all
just said
gone. You're all gone." So
Elon
every one
wants
of
to
you is
help
gone, and you are the
him
greatest.
cutting
You would be
things.
very good. Oh, you would love it.
Pretty cool.
But if you look at Argentina.
Well, I'd be happy
Yeah,
to
by
help
the way,
out.
congratulations. I
Yeah.
just looked at the number of people that are listening to you and I chat. We'll call it a chat. But
Yeah.
congratulations. This is very good. I mean, it's great. And you're an interesting character. The new head of a place called Argentina, and he's a big,
Malay's awesome.
he's great. And
Yeah.
he's a big MAGA fan, that he ran on MAGA. And he took it to an extreme too. He ran on MAGA, and I hear he's doing really a terrific job. It's called Make Argentina Great Again. It worked out perfectly. He came in, he bought a lot of hats, he brought over, but he's doing a big job. He really cut. And I'm hearing
Yeah.
they're starting to do pretty well. Inflation's getting down. They had like
Yes,
2,000%. They had inflation like not normal inflation. They had the real deal. But we're going to
Yeah.
have that pretty soon. We have. I think we
Yeah.
have the worst inflation we've had in 100 years. They say it's 48 years. I don't believe it. I think we have the worst. They
Yeah.
don't include a lot of the items that should be included.
Yeah. Well, it's just from government overspending and not spending taxpayer money
Yeah.
effectively, and having just like so many departments you can't even name them all. And what Malay is doing is he's cutting government spending. He's simplifying things. He's having putting in regulations that make sense, and we're Argentina overnight is experiencing a giant improvement
That's right.
in prosperity. But it's also a lesson for the United States, which is that Argentina used to be one of the most prosperous countries in the world. In the like in the 30s, 40s, and because of bad government policy, it ruined the country. And if you take Venezuela, for example, Venezuela should be incredibly prosperous. They have phenomenal reserves of everything, oil, everything, and it should be prosperous. But if the government's wrong, it impoverishes the people. And so I think we should not be complacent in the United States and thinking that and taking our prosperity for granted, because if with bad government policy we can run the country into the ground, and that's just something people should bear in mind. Don't take prosperity for granted.
Well, think of education. So we're ranked at the bottom of every list of the top 40. We're ranked number 40, number 38. Uh, Norway, Switzerland, Sweden, different countries are ranked good. Actually, China's pretty close to the top. They're a top 6 or 7. But we're ranked at the bottom, almost at the bottom, 38, 39, 40. In other words, horrible. And yet we spend more per pupil than any other country in the world. So we spend more. And what I'm going to do, one of the first acts, and this is where I need an Elon Musk. I need somebody that has a lot of strength and courage and smarts. I want to close up Department of Education, move education back to the states, where
Yeah.
where states like Iowa, where states like Idaho, not every state will do great, because states that basically aren't doing good now. You look at Gavin Newsom, the governor of California. He he's terrible. He does a terrible job. So he's not going to do great with education. But of the 50, I would bet that 35 would do great, and 15 of them, or 20 of them will be as good as Norway. Norway is considered great. You can name them. I mean, they're so good. Some of these countries are so good. But if you go into some of these really well-run states, we have states that don't know what debt is. We have states that have low taxes, no debt, everybody working. They're really well-run.
Sure.
And maybe they have certain advantages in terms of location, in terms of the land, or the sun, and the water and the whole thing. There are a lot of advantages that some people have. But if you moved education back to the 50, you'll have some that won't do well, but they'll actually be forced to do better, because it'll be a pretty bad situation. But if you think about it, you'll have some of these states. I'll bet you'd have 30, 35 states. It'll be much better. And you know what it'll cost? Less than half what it is in Washington. And these people don't care about the students in these, faraway states. And it'd be unbelievable.
Yeah. I think you're making a good point in that if the states have to if each state has to compete against other states, then people will naturally move to states where it's better.
Well, like California, as we said, it's a badly run state. I could go through. I got so many friends that are in those states, even if they're Democrats. I hate to mention certain states, but Illinois is badly run with Pritzker. He's a real loser. But some of these places are just badly run. But it's almost going to force them to run better, and they won't do it good initially. But you're not going to do worse than you're doing right now. And I would say that the cost, you would cut your cost by 50 or 60%. And you'd have a little monitor. You want to make sure they're teaching English, as an example. Give us a little English, right?
Sure.
Right?
Yeah. No, but I mean, to what? I mean, some of these governors are doing so badly. I mean, they got so many people moving out of their state. They should get U-Haul Salesman of the Year award because they're driving so much U-Haul.
It's actually amazing.
It's just people moving out.
Isn't it amazing to you as a businessman that they can even survive? Like Illinois, so many people are leaving, and you wonder, how do they survive? I mean, how do they survive?
Absolutely true. I live in the state.
I saw where you left California and you moved to Texas. Texas does a great job. But, I mean, I just wonder, how do these states survive when big businesses, a big oil company just left California, as you know, and they moved to Texas. How do these big states survive when they lose so many businesses and their taxes are already really high? The taxes are among the highest taxes. You almost wonder, how do they continue on? And in many cases, the governors don't do a good job, and they're crime-ridden places. You wonder, how do they continue to just go on? It's not a good situation.
I mean, I think the only thing that's going to force some of these states to change is if they risk bankruptcy and they're not getting bailed out by the federal government.
Right. Well,
That's
you're
the
going to
only thing
have
that's going to
that.
get them changed.
You remember the
Yeah.
area in California where they had that, where I guess somebody had sticky fingers and they stole a lot of money, and they went into a form of chapter, and it was very
Yeah.
nasty
Yeah.
for a period of time. But now it's probably the most popular place in all of California. So at some point, something like that may have to happen. But the problem is, you can't penalize people that loan money to the state when you have incompetent people like a Pritzker. Look, the family didn't want him in the family business, and then he ends up being governor of Illinois. So what is he going to be? Is he going to be a great governor? And you have people. I could name every one of them. I got
Spoiler
to know
alert,
every
no.
one of
Yep.
these, and some are very good, and some are just horrible.
Well, I think that the larger point here, too, as you're saying, like a lot of people are concerned about the economy, a lot of people are concerned about inflation, and inflation is effectively a tax on people that save money,
Yeah.
and for people that are working day to day, it's just a form of taxation. And if we can solve the government spending problem, we'll solve the inflation problem, which means people will have a better standard of living,
Yeah.
and that's a really big
Well, the
deal.
people that got hurt worst are the people that did it the way they were taught to do it all through, their younger life and their young life and their whole life. The people that saved money and then they got no interest on their money and inflation destroyed them. And frankly, they were almost better off if they didn't do anything like that. I mean, those people have been absolutely decimated, and we're going to bring those people back and help those people. We've got to get the prices down. When I
Yeah,
look at
so
bacon costing
one of the things that I would
4 or
point
5
out with
times
that
more than it did a few
is an
years ago.
example.
When you
Think you've
look at
saved
some of the food
$1,000,
products in grocery
and
stores,
then
people go, they
inflation
can't believe
hits,
it.
and
They used to be able to
51%
buy a
inflation
whole
overall.
cart, and today, a
That
lot of people
$1,000
just
is now
don't
worth,
have the
say,
money. They go in and they
$600.
can't buy
So
anything.
you've
They
lost
looked at
money. If you
Yeah,
would have spent it when
it's
it
sticker
was
shock.
worth
They call it sticker
$1,000,
shock,
it
right?
would be worth
I
more
think it really just
for
comes, like I
you
said, I think it
in
just comes down to really,
the
I
goods
guess,
and
to really
services or
two things,
whatever
which
you were
is
going to purchase
is that
with it.
if you solve
However, if you
government
wait
overspending, you
until it's
solve
worth $500 or
inflation, which improves living
$600,
Right.
standards of
you're
of
going
the,
to get
the average
less
person, and
buying
then
power,
if
and
you
that's really where inflation
deregulate, like
hits.
have sensible
I got
regulations,
a
so
couple of
because a
large
lot of
pay
the
raises
regulations
over
are
the last couple of
nonsensical and
years
cause
because my company
the
was doing
cost to
very
be
well that I
extreme
work
for no
for.
reason.
Guess what? They've almost been
But
wiped
unless
out
you've
by the
got
inflation.
effective
It doesn't feel
deregulation,
like
like
I'm making
Reagan
any
did
more money
did a
than I
great job on
was.
deregulation in
And
the
that
80s,
is
but
a
it's been
very
40 years
dangerous
since we
thing.
hadn't
And
had
that's
Right.
anyone
something that people
really.
don't talk about.
During
And
your
it only
administration, we made some
affects
progress, but I think
the people
uh,
that
there's
are
opportunity to
not
make, I think, radical
wealthy.
progress with sensible
It
regulation.
doesn't affect people that already
Yeah.
own
And
everything that they
Well,
have.
Elon,
It
and
actually
those two
helps
things,
them because their
yeah,
stuff's worth more.
those are the big
yeah,
The
deals.
people
we
that are
set
still
a
buying
record.
and paying for
We set
houses,
a. We
paying for
did more
cars, guess what?
deregulation and
It kills
more
them. It kills them.
restrictions on all of the different businesses than any other president. Remember, I had the rule for everyone we put in, you have to get rid of 10 or 12. And we did
Yeah,
radical cuts on all of that, and a lot of that's being put back by this administration. And we did radical cuts on things that weren't necessary. But we were all set. We had the best economy ever, maybe in the world. And then what happened is COVID came in, and we had to focus on that, and nobody knew what it was. And I always say I got good marks on economy, good marks on military. We knocked out ISIS. We did so many different things. We rebuilt. But, I never got the credit that we really deserved on what we did with COVID. We never got the credit. But if had that not happened, a gift from China, from Wuhan, came in from Wuhan, the Wuhan labs, and I always said it, and it turned out to be right. But
yeah,
had that not happened, we were set to start reducing debt. We were going to reduce taxes further. I gave the largest tax cuts, and we were going to reduce taxes still further for middle income people, not only businesses. But we did it for
sure.
businesses because they're the ones that's why we had the great job numbers. But we were set to really start reducing debt. And, we're sitting on the biggest pile of liquid gold anywhere in the world, bigger than Saudi Arabia, bigger than Russia. And we were going to drill, and we were going to make so much money. We were going to supply Europe with oil. I had stopped the Russian pipeline, and we were going to supply them with oil and gas. We were going to make a fortune. And then the COVID came in, and we really had to divert. Then what happened is when they came in, we kept a lot of businesses alive. If I didn't do what we did, we would have had a 1929 type depression. But the problem is when Biden came in, he got trillions of dollars and just started spending it stupidly. You didn't need it anymore. We got over that bad period where everybody was dying and feeling, it was just not a good period. Interestingly, during his administration, many more people died during his administration of COVID than during my administration, and we really got the brunt of it. But people don't realize more people died during his administration than ours. But it diverted us from doing what I wanted to do. But we had the greatest for almost 3 years. We had the great, and you know that probably better than anybody. So many of your friends said to me, the best years we've ever had in business were during the Trump years, and also said that African American, Hispanic American were so incredible. They were having the best. Asian American women, men, young people without a diploma, young people that graduated from the best colleges, from MIT, from the Wharton School, from all of the great colleges, Harvard. They were doing better, and people without a diploma were doing better, and everybody was happy. And then COVID came, and we had the problem is they spent trillions and trillions of dollars. They wasted. They shouldn't have taken any money, and we wouldn't be having inflation right now, which is killing our country.
Yeah, and absolutely. I mean, I should probably say something about maybe my views on climate change and oil and gas, because I think it's probably different from what most people would assume, because my views are actually pretty, I think, moderate in this regard, which is that I don't think we should vilify the oil and gas industry and the people that have worked very hard in those industries to provide the necessary energy to support the economy. And if we were to stop using oil and gas right now, we would all be starving, and the economy would collapse. So it's I don't think it's right to sort of vilify the oil and gas industry, and the world has a certain demand for oil and gas, and it's probably better if the United States provides that than some other countries, and it would help with prosperity in the U.S. And at the same time, obviously, my view is like we do over time want to move to a sustainable energy economy, because eventually you do run out of. I mean, you run out of oil and gas. It's not there. It's not infinite. And there is some risk. I think the risk is not as high as a lot of people say it is with respect to global warming. But I think if you just keep increasing the parts per million in the atmosphere long enough, eventually it actually simply gets uncomfortable to breathe. People don't realize this. If you go past 1,000 parts per million of CO2, you start getting headaches and nausea. And so we're now in the sort of 400 range. We're adding, I think, about roughly 2 parts per million per year. So I mean, it still gives us. So what it means is like we still have quite a bit of time, but so there's not like we don't need to rush, and we don't need to stop farmers from farming, or prevent people from having steaks, or basic stuff like that. Like you can leave the farmers alone.
I agree. How crazy is that? Where you have farmers that are not allowed to farm anymore and have to get rid of their cattle, and the whole world is a little crazy. But it's largely taken its lead from us. I just say though, I've heard in terms of the fossil fuel. Because
but America is not even close to the biggest
create
offender
your electric car and create the electricity needed for the electric car.
Climate change
fossil fuel is what really creates that at the generating plants.
And
so you sort of can't get away from it at this moment. I mean, someday you might be able to. But I do hear we have anywhere from 100 to 500 years left. Much of it hasn't even been found yet. But there are tremendous, like Anwar. I got Anwar in Alaska approved. Ronald Reagan couldn't do it. Nobody could do it. Everybody tried. Nobody could do it. I got it approved. The first thing that Biden did was unimprove it, to get rid of it. He ended it. His secretary went in and she ended it. And what a disgrace. That's Anwar. That's bigger, or they think it could be bigger than Saudi Arabia in Alaska. Could be bigger than Saudi Arabia. But they went in and they terminated it. And I'll get it going very quickly, because not only is it big for Alaska, I mean, you talk about economic development, that for the United States, I mean, that is, they say bigger than Saudi Arabia or the same size, and pure, really good stuff.
It's
And,
actually some of the
they
best
ended.
oil in
So
the
I think we
world,
have,
unlike the stuff that you
perhaps
get from
hundreds of years left.
Russia.
Nobody
Saudi
really knows.
Arabia's got pretty
But
good oil.
during that
Yeah,
during that
I mean,
time, something
The
will
Russian
come
stuff
around
is
that
just
will be very good.
nasty. It has to be
yeah.
cleaned multiple
Well, I mean,
times.
my
It's
estimate would
just
be,
horrible,
a little
horrible
more
fuel.
aggressive than that, but it's not the sort of like we're all going to die in 5 years stuff. That's obviously BS. But I mean, my view is like if you just look at sort of the parts per million that increments every year, you get sort of 2 or 3 parts per million every year of CO2. I mean, I think some of that it's problematic if it accelerates, if you start going from 2 or 3
Right.
to say 5, and then there may be some situations where you get just a step change increase in the CO2, and I think we don't want to get too close to 1,000 ppm, because like that's actually makes it uncomfortable to breathe. Like just existing in 1,000 ppm CO2 is uncomfortable. That's like that's considered like an industrial hazard.
Right.
Just so it's that's actually, you start getting headaches and stuff. So it's even without global warming, it's not comfortable to live. So you don't want to get too close to that. But I mean, I think we've got. I think we want to just move over, and like, and if I don't know, 50 to 100 years from now, we're I don't know, mostly sustainable. I think that'll probably be okay. Um, so it's not like the house is on fire immediately, but I think it is something we need to move towards. And
And
on
see, the government
on
wants you to think
balance,
that the
it's
house is
probably better to
burning down
move
around you, and that's why
there
they're trying to enact.
faster
And it
than
has nothing
slower.
to do
But
with
like I said,
anything to do with
without
climate
vilifying the oil
change
and gas
or
industry,
this impending doom.
and
It has
without causing
everything to do
hardship
with
in the short
they
term, I
want
think
to
this can
control
be
your
done.
lives.
Um,
And we saw that with COVID,
without,
and this is just
but
more of
people
the
can still
same. The
have,
government is using climate
a
change as their
stake, and
next
they can
vehicle
still
to enact more
drive
government
gasoline cars,
regulation,
and
more
it's
control,
it's
and
okay.
taking
It's like
away
it's
your
not. I don't
possessions
think we should
that
vilify
you
people
have
for it, but
rightfully
I think we should
purchased and
just
you have worked for hard
generally
for
lean in the
all of your
direction
lives,
of
and just to
sustainability.
enact a level of
And
control that
I
is
actually think solar is going
frankly
to be a majority of
authoritarian.
Earth's energy generation
That's what this is
in
all
the
about.
future, and it's certainly trending
It's
that
not
way.
about, because as he
And
said,
so you get the
50 to
solar
100 years
power,
from now we could see something
combine that
like that.
with
And
batteries.
who's
So
to say that
because obviously
innovation
the sun
isn't
doesn't
going to
shine at
pick
night,
up and going to be able to get
and
rid
then
of a
you use
lot
that to
more of that
charge the
kind of
electric
stuff as
cars,
technology
and you
increases?
have a long-term sustainable
So,
solution.
and
And
you have
that's
to
that's
also
what
talk
Tesla's
about the
trying to move
countries
things towards, and I
that are
think
the
we've
worst
made a lot of
offenders,
progress
like
in that
China.
regard. But when you
China
look at our
doesn't
cars,
adhere to any of these
like we
things that
don't
they
believe
sign up for.
that
They build
environmentalism,
coal
that
plants left
caring
and
about the
right.
environment
It's
should mean
not
that
the
you have to
U.S. We're
suffer.
actually one of the
So we make sure
least
that our cars are beautiful,
offenders
that they
of
drive
large
well, that they're
countries.
fast, they're
We're countries that are
sexy. I mean,
way bigger
they're
than us
cool.
that
In
are
fact,
way
literally,
worse
I mean,
offenders.
the sexy joke, Model S, Model 3, Model X, and Y spells out sexy. It was probably the most expensive joke out there. But I don't know, I like cheesy humor, So, but I'm not, I'm a big fan of like, let's have an inspiring future, and let's work towards a better future, and we can do so without demonizing
Right.
people.
I'm okay.
You know.
It's very interesting. You use the word global warming, and today they use the word climate change because you have some places that go up, and so they were getting themselves in a little trouble with the word global warming because not every place is warming. Some places are going the opposite direction. But I'm sort of waiting for you to come up with solar panels on the roofs of your cars and on the trunks of the cars, and it just seems like something that at some point you will come up with. I'm sure you'll be the first, but it would seem that a solar panel on the roofs, on flat surfaces, on certain surfaces might be good.
Yeah.
At least in certain areas of the country where you have the world
Sure.
where you have the sun. But I would think, and I have no idea because that's not my world, but I would think that this would be something that would be interesting. But the one thing that I don't understand is that people talk about global warming or they talk about climate change, but they never talk about nuclear warming. And to me,
Sure.
that's an immediate problem because you have, as I said, 5 countries where you have major nuclear, and probably some others are getting there, and that's very dangerous. That's where you need a strong American president because you don't want to have this proliferation. But you have 5 countries and getting more. China is much less than us right now, but they're going to catch us sooner than people think. They're way lower. Russia and us are number one, and I mean, we're sort of tied. And China is far behind, but they're developing at a level that you're not surprised to hear very fast. They'll end up catching up. maybe even
Yeah.
surpassing. But to me, the biggest problem is not climate change. It's not, and everything's a problem, but it's degrees. To me, the big problem is the nuclear power. The power of nuclear is so great. And when I talk about
Nuclear power is underrated. It's
I'll
awesome.
prevent World War
Yeah.
III, I will. But the truth is that you have to, because this is no longer army tanks going back and forth and shooting at each other. This is a level of destruction and power that nobody's ever seen before.
Yeah, and actually, there's the bad side of nuclear, which is nuclear war, very bad side. But there's also, I think, nuclear electricity generation is underrated.
You're right.
And it's actually, people have this fear of nuclear electricity generation.
That's absolutely correct.
But it's actually one of the
100%.
safest forms of electricity
Nuclear
generation.
is the most
It's just a huge
effective
misunderstanding
of power that
and
there
if you look at the
is.
injuries and deaths, caused by, say, I mean, I'm not going to try to pick on coal mining, but just any kind of mining operation. And there's a certain number of injuries and deaths per year. And you compare that to nuclear. Nuclear is actually way better. So it's underrated as an electricity source, and I think it's something that's worth reconsidering. But there's so much regulation that people can't get it done. So that
maybe they'll have to change the name. The name is it's a rough name. There are some areas
it's rough
like
name.
when you see what happened.
Good bad branding.
Right. We'll have to rebrand it. We'll have to give it a good name. We'll name it after you or something. No, it has a branding problem. When you see what happened,
it does have a branding problem.
When you see what happened in Japan, where they say you won't be able to go on the land for about 3,000 years. Did you ever see that? And in Russia, where they had the problem, where they there's a lot of bad things happened, and they have a problem. And they say that in 2,000 years, people will start to occupy the land again. You realize it's pretty bad.
No, that's not true.
But you're right about it. It's amazing.
It's actually not that bad. So like after Fukushima happened in Japan, like people were asking me in California, are we worried about like a nuclear cloud coming from Japan? I'm like, no, that's crazy. It's not even dangerous in Fukushima. I actually flew there and ate locally grown vegetables on TV to prove it. And I donated a solar water treatment, a solar powered system for a water treatment plant. And
but you haven't been feeling so well lately, and I'm worried about it.
No, but I mean,
I'm only kidding.
It's fine, It's like Hiroshima and Nagasaki were bombed, but now they're like full cities again. So it's really not something that
That's right.
So it's not as scary as people think, basically. But let's see. I mean, are there some other topics we should touch on? Like lawfare. I think we need to be concerned about
what they've done to this country.
Obviously, yeah.
Well, we just won the big case in Florida. This was a Biden administration did something that's never been done in this country, and that's go after their political opponent, me, with this nonsense and just nonsense. And the big case in Florida we won, but they always pick a judge and a jury, and they use local DAs, they use the local attorney generals, like Fani, Fani, spelled Fani, Fani. And it's all a big hoax, and it's all run from there. Like in Manhattan, one of the top people from the Justice Department went in, ran Manhattan, ran the state. The Letitia James deal was run by a person from the Department of Justice, Biden. They've never done this before, and they set up a very bad precedent. It's called lawfare, warfare. It's a terrible thing, and never happened in our country. It does happen in banana republics and third world countries, but it's never happened. And the incredible thing is it actually drove my numbers up because people see, fortunately I have a platform like you, or, in all fairness, like a conversation like this where I can talk about it and people understand. I mean, you fight for election integrity and you end up getting indicted because you're fighting for election integrity. And when the day comes that you can't fight for election integrity, you don't have a country anymore. So what happens is they went after their political opponent, me. Now Biden's, close to vegetable stage, in my opinion. Okay, I looked at him today on the beach, and I said, why would anybody allow him? The guy could barely walk. Why would anybody allow him? Does he have a political advisor that thinks this looks good? He thinks this looks good because
here's the big question.
It looks so bad.
If he's not able
And
to
it's
run
ridiculous.
again for
I mean,
president. Why
and
is
he's
he
been
the
doing
president
that for a
right
long
now?
time. You know, he can't lift the
Why
chair. The
is
chair
he
weighs about 3 ounces. It's
still
meant
in
for
that
children
position?
and old
Why isn't
people to lift.
Kamala the
And
president right
he
now?
can't
Yeah.
lift
If
it.
he is that bad
The
that he
whole
can't
thing is
actually run
Well,
for
crazy.
he's
re-election,
clearly. I mean, he's clearly
then
like we just don't
why?
have a president.
Why
Like
is
You
he
don't
that's
still
have
the
a
just obviously
president.
president?
the
And
case.
she's going to be worse than him because
And
she
it's because she
is
gets
a San
to
Francisco liberal
run as
who
somebody who's going to
destroyed San
change everything when
Francisco.
she's
And then as Attorney
actually the
General, she
vice
destroyed
president.
California.
And the policies
You
that she's
talk
going
about
to enact are
location,
the
and we're
policies that
talking
we're
about the
under. There's not
sun
going
and
to
the
be any
water and all.
changes unless
There's
it's changes
nothing
for the
better than
worse.
California. She has destroyed that. She was the original DA. She was the original in San Francisco. She was the original Attorney General in California. What she has done to California is, well, you know better than I do. You just left California for a lot of those reasons. And what she's done with crime, with cashless bail, where you kill somebody. I mean, we have states there you kill somebody and they let you out right away. I mean, you don't have to even put up, and then they never find the people unless they kill again, and then they let them out again. Our
Yeah.
country is becoming a very dangerous place. And she is a radical left San Francisco liberal. And now she's trying to protect. Now she's looking like she wants to be more Trump than Trump, if that's possible. I don't think it's possible. But she wants to be more Trump than
Well,
Trump.
yeah.
I want a wall.
I think that's
You know, she
yeah.
wants to release all the
Yeah.
prisoners that are in detention.
That's
And some
correct.
of
The
these
only
guys are really
policy
bad.
positions that she
Right.
has
That just
pushed
came
out
Yeah. I
out
are
just saw
today.
that.
policies that
She
copy
wants.
what Trump
She
Yeah.
doesn't
said,
want to build
like
the
the
wall,
no
even though
tax
the
on
walls work.
tips
Walls and
and
wheels.
the
You know,
wall,
in your
border
business,
security, and
everything
all
you
that
do
stuff.
is
She
obsolete.
was in
Almost,
charge of
well,
the
not
border
the
and has
tunnels,
been for
but
3.5
everything is
years.
obsolete. Even your rocket ships, they're
And
like a
more people
month
have come into
later,
this
they're
country in the last
obsolete. You
3.5
find a
years
better
than
way to.
ever
The
any
only
time
thing
in
that's not
American history.
obsolete is a wall and a
It's
wheel.
insanity
And
to think
the
that
wall,
anything's
you know, I
going to
built
change. It's
hundreds of
going to get
miles of wall,
worse.
and that's why we had such good numbers. I was going to add
Yeah.
200 miles. We bought it. We could have flipped it up in 3 weeks, and they sold it for 5 cents on the dollar. That meant I said, "Wow, that means that they actually do want to have open borders." She wants to have open borders, and now she's going like she's tough on the border. It's such a lie.
Yeah. This is simply not
Yeah,
true. This is simply
no,
not
and
true.
everybody
Yeah.
knows
It's
it's
simply not
not true.
true.
It's a disgrace that she can
Yeah.
say it.
No, I mean, obviously, what's happening sort of overnight is they're rewriting history and making Kamala sound like a moderate when in fact she is far left, like far left.
Worse than Bernie
Um,
Sanders. She is considered
yeah,
more liberal by far than Bernie Sanders. She's a radical left lunatic. And if she's going to be our president, very quickly, you're not
Fact
going to
check
have a
true.
country anymore. And she'll go back to all
yeah,
of the things that she believes in. She believes in defunding the police. She believes in no fracking, zero. You don't. Now all of a
yeah,
sudden she's
yeah.
saying, no, I will. I really want to see fracking. If they got in, the day she got in, she'll end fracking. And by the way, if people didn't think that, the lunatics that
Listen
really
up,
believe in that,
Pennsylvania. She will
they won't
end
vote for her.
fracking.
You know,
That will
like the
destroy
Yeah.
Western
Palestinians and
Pennsylvania.
Israel. She is so anti-Israel, and she's bad for both. Biden actually did something that was impossible. Both sides hate him. You know, both sides. That was a hard
Yeah.
thing to do. Unification.
Yeah, no. I mean, Netanyahu
And that's why
came
they
to give
replaced him.
a talk to a joint Senate and House sitting, and I was there, and Kamala stood him up. What does that say?
I think it's highly
That's
disrespectful. And I say, if you're a Jewish person or if you believe in Israel, if you're a person that, is very pro-Israel, if you vote for her, it's worse than Biden. And Biden was bad. But if you vote for her, you ought to have your head examined. And you see tonight, I mean, as we're doing this, I'm seeing reports coming that they expect an attack tonight or tomorrow from hundreds and maybe thousands of rockets. You know, their Iron Dome, as they call it, as we all call it, but their shield that they build, that can be swamped. We'll use the term that's appropriate, swamped. But they swamp it by shooting enough missiles. You know this better
That's
than anybody. By
actually
shooting enough
exactly
missiles,
correct. It
they
is a
can't
very
defend themselves.
effective,
They just obliterate the whole place.
defense system.
And that's
But what they do is they
some
fire
people
so many
think
missiles that it
they're looking
overwhelms
to
the system,
do.
and the system
And we
can't
have no
keep up with it.
leadership. There's no
And so
respect
that's
for
how
the
these
United
rockets get
States
through
of
and kill little
America with these
kids.
people.
And
And
in
I'm
some
telling
cases,
you, she'll be
Muslim kids,
worse than him
not
because
just
she's a
Israelis,
believer
but
in being
actually, you're right.
radical left,
Muslims
and he
Arabs.
wasn't.
I think you're right. I mean, it really it's important for the public that may be listening to this to look at Kamala's track record, before the last like month, and say, is that a track record you agree with? And I think if you're an independent moderate, you definitely would not agree with it, because it is her behavior has been far left, and we're seeing just an overnight propaganda attempt to rewrite history and make it sound like Kamala's moderate when she in fact is not moderate.
Well,
Um, so I
her
think that
running mate approved, signed into legislation, tampons in boys' bathrooms. Okay, now
yeah,
that's
yeah,
all
that's
I have
weird.
to hear. Tampons in
That's
boys'
weird.
bathrooms, and that means she
Yeah,
believes in that too. I mean,
yeah, that's
she
not
picked
okay.
this guy because he was the closest to her. A lot of people thought she'd pick sort of the opposite, but she picked an anti-Israel radical left person. But she is far worse, they say, than Bernie Sanders. If we have her as a president, if we have a Democrat at this moment as a president, I don't think our country can survive.
I think it's a massive. I think we're in massive trouble, frankly, with the Kamala administration, and that's my honest opinion. Um, and uh, and I think really it's essential that you win for the good of the country for this election. And I mean, I'm just stating my opinion. Now, you may have seen this, but I got a letter from the EU Commission, like saying, to not have disinformation on the like during this discussion that we're having, like, and there's a lot of attempts to do censorship and to force censorship even on Americans from other countries, and um, what do you think about that?
Well, I know the European Union very well. They take great advantage of the United States in trade, as you know. We, through a different forum, NATO, we protect them. And yet, if you build a car in the United States, you can't sell it in Europe. You just can't sell it. It's impossible. The same thing with our farmers. Our farmers find it very difficult to do business. You know, we have a deficit with them of $250 billion, which people don't know. It sounds so nice, the European Union, but let me tell you, they're not as tough as China, but they're bad. And I let them know it. And that's probably why they notified you. No, they don't treat our country well. We defend them, you know, with Ukraine. So we're in for 250 billion, and they're in for about 71 billion, and they have the same size. It's if you add up the European nations that in terms of an economy, it's about the same size when you say as us, and they're in
Yeah,
and they're in much greater risk. They they're right there. We have an ocean separating us from, in this case, the enemy would be Russia. It used to be for the
yeah,
Soviet Union, but let's assume they're close enough. And what happens is uh, they're in for 70 something million. I think even less than that, billion, and we're in for about 250 billion, and it could be a lot higher than that. And I say, why aren't you going to equalize? Why aren't they paying what we're paying? And they're in much more, it's much more important for them because of the fact that, they're right near there. I mean, they're all sort of in that location. We're
Yeah,
not.
Roy, I agree with you. The
But
border is an
they
yeah,
should,
absolute
they
must.
should, and I
We
did it with
have to get
NATO.
rid of all the illegals,
There
all
were
the
only
criminals.
7 countries that
Send them
were
back.
paid up
Get
in
them out of here.
NATO out of 28 at the time. And the United States
yeah,
was subsidized.
yeah,
The United States was subsidizing NATO, tremendously subsidizing NATO. And I went
yeah,
in and I said, you
yeah,
got to pay up. If you don't pay up, we're not going to defend you any longer. I took a lot of heat, but you know what happened? Billions and billions of dollars came flowing in, and
yeah. I think a lot of the public isn't aware of the fact that the United States pays a disproportionate share of the NATO expenses,
and then we get
even though
taken
like
advantage of on trade. So think
yeah,
about it.
well, I mean, the point of NATO is defending Europe, and it's it's like, then okay, well, why is the United States paying disproportionately more to defend Europe than Europe? That doesn't make sense. That's unfair, and that is an appropriate thing to address.
Well,
Um,
when you talk about
so
cost cutting and savings and everything else, I mean, honestly, look, there's nobody that feels worse about the Ukraine situation than I do because I know it would have never happened. I know Zelensky. He was very honorable to me because when they went with the Russia hoax and they said I had a phone call with him, he said it was a perfect phone call. It was a great phone call. He could have grandstanded and, said, oh, he was very threatening. He said, no, it was a very nice phone call. I called him up to congratulate him on his win, and you end up getting impeached because these people are lunatics. I was talking about the difference from the people within and the enemies on the outside. In many cases, the people from within are more dangerous for our country than the Russias and the Chinas. If you have a smart president, you're not going to have a problem with them. You're going to do things.
One of those was
Now, they've
Burisma,
taken
I guess,
advantage
was
of
on
us
the board of
incredibly, but
Burisma.
you're going to do things with the right person.
Joe Biden's son.
Yeah, well, I think
And
it's
that's why
obvious
they
that you're
impeached him, because
a believer and an
Ukraine
advocate
has been
of
well
free
known
speech,
as
because
the
during your
most
first term
corrupt
as
country
president,
in the
you were
Western
attacked
world for
relentlessly every day,
a long,
often
long
very
time, most
unfairly,
of
with
my life.
with
And
false attacks.
what was going on
And
was
you didn't try to shut down the media. You didn't try
it's a
to
money laundering scheme. Part of this
inhibit their
war in
freedom of
Ukraine is a
speech,
money
and I
laundering
think
scheme.
that says a lot.
They're
Well, the
filling their
good thing is
pockets
that
on
you and I have,
the
and some people,
lives
very
and the
few,
corpses
we
of
can get
dead
the word out.
Ukrainians
Although
and dead
sometimes it's
Russians,
hard
and
because
it
they don't want to
doesn't,
print it.
it's not
Like
beneficial
we're having
to
a great
anybody.
conversation right now. Kamala wouldn't have this conversation. She can't because she's not
No.
smart. She's not a smart person, by the way. She can't have this conversation. And Biden, we don't even have to talk about it. I mean, he couldn't have this conversation. He would have given up on the first half of a question. He would have walked out. He would have said, "Where am I? Where am I going?" So anyway, but no, he wouldn't have this.
That's true.
Not a lot of people would have this conversation, but we cover a lot of territory. But the beauty is that we can have a conversation, and
Yes, you
I'm
can actually
able
have a
to get it
conversation.
out without, because I get treated
This
unfairly.
is a really big point. You can actually have a conversation with you.
Yeah, it's nice, isn't it?
And you can't have a conversation with Biden or Kamala. It's it's not possible.
That's true.
This is like talking to an NPC.
No.
So it's just impossible.
Well, but think of it. We need a man or person who's unbelievably sharp in order to stop all the nuclear danger and all the dangers that I'm talking about. And I got along with all these. I got along with Kim Jong-un. We had dinner. We had everything. And he really liked me, and I got along with him really well. By the way, he's the absolute boss over there. A lot of people said, "Oh, do you think he really?"
I'll adjust the volume
Let me
up a
tell
little
you,
bit.
I saw things that you don't want to know about. He is the boss. But we had a good relationship, and he doesn't like Biden. He considers him a stupid man. He said he's a stupid man. Well, at least he speaks his mind. But in this country, you're not sort of allowed to say it. But I guess you are. You should be allowed to say it if it's true. But we need smart people, and we need people that have an ability to lead. And she doesn't have that ability. Can you imagine? Now, Chairman Xi very well. Can you imagine her and him negotiating, or even standing together? It is, the whole concept is ridiculous. She is terrible. She's terrible. But she's getting a free ride. I saw a picture of her on Time Magazine today. She looks like the most beautiful actress ever to live. It was a drawing. And actually, she looked very much like our great first lady, Melania. She didn't look she didn't look like Camilla. That's right. But of course, she's a beautiful woman, so we'll leave it at that, right?
Yeah, well, maybe I think part of what people in America want to feel excited and inspired about the future. They want to feel like the future is going to be better than the past, and that America is going to do things that are greater than we've done in the past, reach new heights that make you proud to be an American, and excited about the future.
They want the American dream
boosted up my volume just a little bit more, to hopefully that will help for you guys to hear me.
It's like you don't have that today because the people, they've been just sucked. They see incompetent people running our. The Biden thing is very interesting. People just found him to be incompetent, and when I debated him, I was like, "Is this for real?" It was.
Yeah, it was just absurd. But I think there are some grand projects that we could do. I mean, I think we could build a base on the moon. We could send American astronauts to Mars. We could build high speed connections that are more advanced than anything else in the world between our cities, so people have fast transport. It's possible to solve traffic with tunnels. We've already made great progress in Vegas doing that, and and just do things that are exciting and inspiring and make the future feel like it's better than the past.
Well, I saw what you did in Vegas, and I'll tell you, it was amazing. I got to see I took a big glimpse at it, and it's incredible. It's incredible, and you could do that all over. You could do that all over. It's deep.
Yeah,
You don't even need much structure, assuming you're in the right area.
no, it's straightforward.
It's amazing.
So I think we could do some things that like China's got incredible high speed rail between its cities, but I think it's actually possible with tunnels if with deregulation with an ability to actually where it's like legal to actually do the tunnels. Then you could have high speed tunnels that are actually better than anything else in the world for high speed transport between cities, and that would be something that Americans can say, "Wow, okay, we've got something that's cooler than anyone else in the world." That's the kind of thing that makes you proud to be an American.
And much safer than surface trains, where there is a danger there. With crazy people, it's much safer, much better. And it's sad because I've seen some of the greatest trains. I find it fascinating, and I've seen the systems and how they work, and the bullet trains they call them, I guess, and they go unbelievably fast, unbelievably comfortable, with no problems. And we don't have anything like that in this country, not even close. And it doesn't make sense that we don't. Doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and I think also like there's I'm kind of hopping on the excess regulation, but I think something that that I think people can generally understand is that what happens with laws and regulations is that there's more and more of them every year, and unless there's a process to clean them up, eventually everything becomes illegal, and that actually it slows down the development of new technologies. I mean, if you take the sort of I think there's room for some reform at the FDA for improving the speed with which we approve drugs that could help save lives and improve people's lives. And
I worked very hard on that. We got that down to the lowest number ever, and we got therapeutics approved in the FDA that people can't even believe the speed. But I took them on. I don't think they like me too much, but I got things approved in the FDA at numbers that they wouldn't believe. And it's a very bureaucratic group. Actually, it's a fine group of people in many cases. I got to know a lot of them, but I was pushing them really hard.
Somebody that's not lining their pockets.
There's so many different things
with the money from drug companies like Pfizer and Moderna, and
takes too long. It's 12 years to get a product.
All of the corruption that's going along with these prescription medications that are really just money-making schemes.
It's really something that is going to have to be worked on because it takes too long. Just takes too long.
Yeah, it just takes too long, and it's you end up in the same with the approval, but it just it takes years instead of something that I think could potentially take months, that improves people's lives. I think I just wanted to hop on this point that there has to be an active process for reducing rules and regulations, because otherwise they just keep building up every year. And you get hardening of the arteries, and eventually everything's illegal or takes forever, and then we just ossify as a society. We can't make any progress, and it's a really big deal.
Elon, just getting back to the FDA for 1 second, I got something done called Right to Try. This is where you can go in, and if you're terminally ill, you can use a space age, medicine or whatever it may be. We have the best doctors, the best labs in the world. We really do. But people would go to other countries because you couldn't use the product, even if they thought it worked, because it's going through the FDA. I got it approved where you can, you basically, look, nobody wanted it. The doctors didn't want it because of the liability. The country didn't want it, our country, because they didn't want to get sued. These are people terminally ill. The insurance companies didn't want it, and the pharmaceutical companies. Nobody wanted it. I got everybody into a room, and we came up with an agreement that you won't get sued. And also, they didn't want it on their record. If somebody's terminally ill and they die after taking a drug, they didn't want that on their record. So we set a separate list if somebody was, so it wouldn't count as a negative. Okay. And as you know, we got it done. We have saved Right to Try. They've been trying to get this done for 58 years, and it sounds simple, but it wasn't, because the insurance companies, nobody wanted it, but we got it done. Somebody signs. You sign a
drop your answer in the comments for what's
the
biggest issue you're voting on this November.
And we got it done, and we're saving tens of thousands of lives. Right to Try. Hopefully, you never need it, but if you do, You don't have to travel to Asia. You know, people,
Right.
if they had money, they go to Asia,
Yeah,
they
sure.
go to Europe. If they don't have money, they go home and die. That's what happened. They'd go home and die.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and actually, to give Europe some props here, it's like if a drug is approved in Europe, which has a crazy amount of regulations, it should obviously be approved in the U.S.
Yeah.
I mean, they get more regulations than we do. So why would a drug be approved in Europe and not in the U.S.? That's crazy.
Well, we did it. We did something that really, they've been trying to do it for 50 years, and they just couldn't get it done, and I got it done. And it's really something. But you're right. Some people go to Europe because a drug isn't approved here, but it's approved in Europe, and it's a drug that, generally speaking, would work. It's pretty crazy.
Absolutely.
So you're right.
And I think so long as people are properly informed of the pros and cons, and like these are the risks, this is the risk, and like you make your own decision.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Well, I think just, you know, in sort of closing up, and by the way, I'm looking at the numbers. You got a lot of people listening. I hope you don't get nervous, because you got a lot of people listening to you right now, like 60 million or something. What is that number? It's crazy. It's amazing how you can see that right away. How many? What is the number? Wow.
66 million views.
Well,
wow.
I think in terms of people,
that's bigger than you said. You said 25, and you're much more than double that number, 25 million. I think you're going to be 60 or 70. And I guess over a period of time, hey, I congratulate you. Do I get paid for this or not?
Well, I think actually in terms of the number of people that will hear this conversation over the next few days to weeks, it's going to be hundreds.
That's what they say. Yeah, that's good. Well, look, it's an honor. I just asked this: are you better off now, or were you better off when I was president? Nobody's better off now. People, we put out polls on that, and nobody's better off now. Inflation has killed it. And, they also feel very unsafe. You look at what's going on with a lot of different things. You look at the riots we had at the colleges it's ridiculous, but all of the riots, they just feel unsafe. And now they really feel unsafe because you have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime. I call it Biden migrant crime. Maybe I'll call it Kamala migrant crime. But
with all these things, I always try to get to the ground truth by just asking people. And my mom lives in New York, and I was like, Mom, have any of your friends, been attacked or assaulted? And she said, yeah, 3 of her friends in 3 separate incidents were assaulted just in recent months, just walking around the streets of New York. And I said, well, what happened to the people that assaulted them? Oh, nothing. They got away. They just know
they always get away.
Nothing's going. And they don't even bother reporting it because they know that they're not going to, people are not going to get prosecuted. They just let, violent criminals out in New York.
The only one that gets prosecuted is Donald Trump. They prosecute Trump.
Yeah, I mean it's just obviously messed up.
Oh, it's terrible.
If violent criminals are getting off scot-free, and meanwhile the New York spending massive resources prosecuting you, and it's like what's this? And I think the sort of sensible public looks at this and says, what the heck's going on here? This is obviously abuse of the legal system. The legal system is supposed to be protecting the public from violent criminals, and it should be obviously allowing the public to make their own decision about who should be president, as opposed to some legal case.
Once they start this precedent, because this can go on with the next one. I mean, this is a very bad precedent what they're doing in terms of going after their political opponent, and that's all it is. It's going after their political opponent, and then you get a judge who's a strong Democrat, and I'm being nice when I say that. In many cases, crooked as hell. But you get a judge, and you go into an area where a Republican gets 3 or 4% of the vote, and you'll have a jury pool with people that hate Republicans or hate. It could also be the other way, though, because it could start the other way in areas where they hate Democrats, and you get into a Pandora's box. It's a very dangerous thing for this country, and a very dangerous thing even for the state. New York City is losing. New York City and state lose a lot of business over what they did to me, because these people say, we don't want that to happen to us. That's no justice system. You have an unfair system of justice, and it's costing New York State a tremendous amount of money. People are leaving and companies are leaving, and they won't come back. So, all of that stuff is important. But the economy now is the big thing, and we can turn that economy up so fast, and people are going to be back again. We're going to get rid of
Yeah, I think
inflation.
there's a lot of opportunity.
Costello.
Absolutely.
So,
And I
Apparently
want to
Elon
congratulate you. You've done
invited
an amazing
Kamala
job.
to
You have
do
definitely
this
got a
same thing
fertile
on an X
mind.
space, and she
We can talk.
refused.
You and I can talk about
I
rockets.
wonder
it's
why.
kind of you to say thank you.
Well,
Because when
tunnels.
she's
We
off
can talk
message,
about
off
tunnels and
teleprompter, she
rockets
can't do anything.
and electric
She
cars.
can't
So
say
many
anything
things.
coherently,
And
at
now
least.
you're into the AI, and that's going to be another beauty, I'll say. So it's
Yeah.
it's
funny.
an amazing
That's a
thing
funny
you've done,
tweet.
Elon. It's an amazing thing, and I
Well,
congratulate you.
I mean, thank you. And I just say here, here's to an exciting, inspiring future that people can look forward to and be optimistic and excited about what happens next. And that's the kind of future that I think you will bring as president, and that's why I endorse you.
Well, I appreciate that. That endorsement meant a lot to me. Not all endorsements mean that much, to be honest. Your endorsement meant a lot. And, we have a phrase, make America great again. It's pretty simple, but it really says that we want to make America great again. And we can do it. We can do it now. But if we were going to suffer another 4 years like we suffered for the last 4 years, I'm not sure the country can ever come back. That's how bad it is. It's so bad. We have to do a lot of things.
I think that's a very real risk.
Yeah, it's a big risk.
That's a very real risk.
Yeah.
And it's, I'd just like to note to people listening, like I've not been very political before, and if you look at my record, I've actually been. I'm not like some they try to paint me as like a far right guy, which is absurd because I'm like making electric vehicles and solar and batteries, helping with the environment, and I actually I supported Obama. I stood in line for 6 hours to shake Obama's hand when he was running for president, and so it's not like I'm like some sort of dyed-in-the-wool long-term Republican. I call myself, historically a moderate Democrat, but now I feel like we're really at a critical juncture for the country, and I think a lot of people thought the Biden administration would be a moderate administration, but it's not, and obviously that we're just going to see an even further left administration with Kamala. That's my honest opinion. I mean, her dad is literally. She was brought up as an actual. Her dad is a Marxist economist. You can Google it. I mean, it's not we're not making this up. That's how she was brought up. So, and we want to have a future that is prosperous. And I think we're just at this critical juncture, and I think this is a case of the America is going to at a fork in the road, and
true.
And I think it will take the path like you are the path to prosperity, and I think Kamala is the opposite. Then that's my honest opinion. I'm gonna get attacked like crazy, and I've also experienced quite a bit of lawfare myself, but I'm just trying to tell people my honest opinion, and I haven't been really active in politics before. And I'm just trying to point out that my track record historically has been moderate, if not moderate, slightly left. And so this is to people out there who are in the moderate camp to say, I think you should support Donald Trump for president. And I think it's actually a very important junction in the road, and we're in deep trouble if it goes the other way.
Well, I want to thank you. And, I actually always did think of you as somewhat left. I must say that. So it's
Yeah.
even more of an honor to have your endorsement. I know how strong you feel about it. But, when you think of her, San Francisco 15 years ago, I had a great friend, Bob Tish. He said it's the greatest city in America. And now it's almost not livable there. And California likewise. And she was involved in the destruction of San Francisco and the destruction of California. And she will be involved in the destruction of our country if people are so unwise as to elect her. And I hope that doesn't happen. And I hope the elections are going to be run honestly. And we're going to turn this country around. We're going to do things and we can do it fairly quickly. And we have to get rid of the criminals that have been, given to us by other countries as they laugh. They laugh at us. They think we're stupid to accept these people. These are radical, stone-cold killers in many cases and terrorists. And they're in our country by the hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
And we have to take them out.
Yeah, I mean, if I could summarize it, perhaps, I think these are issues that I think most people in America would agree with, which is that we want safe and clean cities, we want secure borders, we want sensible government spending, we want to restore both the perception and reality of respect in the judicial system, stop the lawfare, and I think that's like, and how are those even right-wing positions? I think those are that's just common sense, and that's I mean, would you agree with that?
100%. I don't understand, the whole, they call it progressive. They don't like the word liberal anymore, but call it liberal or progressive. I don't understand how somebody could say that it's okay for them to empty prisons into our country. And again, I told you, their crime rates all over the world are going way down, which makes sense. In fact, the next time what we'll do is, if something happens with this election, which would be a horror show, we'll meet the next time in Venezuela, because it'll be a far safer place to meet than our country. Okay, so we'll go, you and I will go, and we'll have a meeting and dinner in Venezuela, because that's what's happening. Their crime rate's coming down, and our crime rate's going through the roof. And it's so simple. And you haven't seen anything yet, because these people have come into our country and they're just getting acclimated. And they don't know about being politically correct law enforcement or lack of law enforcement. And our police, I have to just end with this. We have great police. We have great law enforcement, but they're not allowed to do their job. They have to be able to do their job without being destroyed.
Well, absolutely. And it's obviously demoralizing if you're a police officer risking your life to arrest violent criminals who could kill you and do kill you sometimes, and then you arrest the violent criminal, and then the DA doesn't prosecute, and that's let the guy out. Right. Well, then, like, why should a police officer risk their life to arrest a violent felon?
Well, even worse, Elon,
if nothing's going to happen.
Even worse, they prosecute the police officer. They go after it, and they prosecute the police officer, and they take away
my
his pension.
co-host, The Righteous Savages, is a 29-year-old, SWAT cop,
I thought it was very telling,
Dave has a lot to say about police and the support that Democrats give to police. It's awful. He also works in one of the only Democrat towns in the area where we live in Southern Illinois.
And then,
for those of you that don't know, Southern Illinois is about as red as any area in the country. It's just that we're overruled by Chicago constantly. But there is one Democratic city, really, or town in Southern Illinois, and that's the one that he works for, and it's awful, the treatment that the police get.
How can such a thing be allowed to occur?
And overall in the country, it's terrible
where
as well.
They get shot. It's a very dangerous profession, but something they're very proud of.
It's one of the most important professions
I've seen them get
for
shot.
keeping law and order.
But I've never seen where these guys are standing in the middle of a big street, everybody watching them, and they're literally boxing, like punching, stand-up fighting a police officer. There were two of them, and yet about six of these guys, and they're punching the hell out of them. And in their own country, they would be dead if they did that. They'd be shot. They would be shot instantly. And, they come from these countries, and it's taking them a while to realize that we don't do that in this country. But in their own country, if they stood on a street and had a fight with a police officer, they would be shot. There's no political correctness. And it's such a sad, it's such a sad thing to see. And that's the reason you have crime, by the way, because we don't do anything about it.
Yeah, we just cannot have a situation where our police officers are beaten up on camera by a gang of illegal immigrants, and then nothing happens to the guys that beat up the cops. I mean,
that's a perfect meme right there.
This is unacceptable.
Well, we're going to change it, and we're going to get them out of the country. When I first got involved, they said you couldn't get them back to these countries.
And he is
you couldn't take them back. In the case of Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, some others, you couldn't get them back. And I said, really? Oh, you can't get them back? Because under Obama, he couldn't get them back. They'd fly them in, and they'd put planes on the runways in these countries so you couldn't land the plane. They'd bring them back. And the generals told me, sir, we can't bring them back. The countries won't accept MS-13 gang members. They won't accept them. And I said, really, how much do we pay these various countries in terms of economic aid, which is also somewhat ridiculous? And the answer was $750 million. I said, good. Tell them they're in default. They're delinquent. We're not paying them anymore because they won't accept it. And you know what happened? They all called me, every one of them. They said, we would be honored to take them back, sir. We would be honored. It was so easy. But it's one of those things. And we got them back. We took in so many. You know, MS-13 is probably
Yeah.
the worst gangs in the world. They're the most vicious, violent. We took them out of here by the thousands and got them out of here. And their countries took them back. And because I said, you're not getting any more economic aid. And once I said that, they were nice. They wouldn't take them back for Obama.
Yeah.
They wouldn't take them back for anybody. And now we have a problem because we have this guy, and they don't take him back anymore with Biden because they don't respect him.
Yeah. It's just gotta be done. We just can't have whether they're citizens or not citizens. We can't have, because they won't prosecute citizens either, not just illegals. So if it's you can't have violent repeat violent offenders that are not that don't get incarcerated.
That's right.
Because they will obviously, by definition, continue to hurt people. And I think where part of this comes from is that there's and I do sort of consider myself liberal in some ways. I mean, it's just that you want to have empathy for
Right.
people. Obviously, you want to have empathy for people. I totally agree with that. You want to have empathy, but you also have to have empathy for the victims of the criminals. And if you just have empathy for the criminals, it's actually shallow empathy. It's not real. You're not thinking. You're one layer deep empathy. You got to say, like, what if you don't incarcerate this person? Who are they going to hurt? Who are they might kill someone. They might rape someone. If you don't incarcerate them, you have to have empathy for the victims. And there's a lack
That's
of
a very
empathy for the
important
victims of the
point.
criminals, and
That's a
too much empathy
super
for the
important
criminals.
point.
It doesn't make sense.
We're always
That's
taught
why you
empathy,
wanna have
and they always
deep
turn it. The
empathy
Democrats seem
for
to always
society as
turn
a
it
whole,
towards the
not
criminals.
shallow
Oh, look at
empathy
these
for
poor criminals.
criminals.
And
But
we
we
have to
never
give
talk
our
about the
police
victims. We never
officers
talk
the
about the Laken
dignity and the
Rileys.
respect that they
She was a
deserve.
victim.
And we have
And
to
the
let them do
reason
their
that she
job.
was
They can do a
murdered
great
was
job,
because of an
but
illegal
we have to let
immigrant.
them do their job. And if
So
we don't
this
do
whole
that,
empathy thing is one-sided
gonna
for the
all-
Democrats, and it's
gonna all
because there's an
disappear.
agenda
There's
behind
never
it.
been a society like this where you're allowed to do anything you want and nothing happens. And I'm talking about violent crime. And it's going to get more violent because these are really, really violent people. And we're going to get them out of our country, and we're going to get them back to because they were sent here by the presidents and by the various people that run those countries. And I know
This is the
every one of
most
those guys.
important
And they're
thing that
smart
I am
people.
voting for
And they're streetwise people.
is the
And they
border.
really think
We
that
cannot have an open
the
border.
USA is stupid. They think we're run by stupid people, and they happen to be right. But when I was there, we had no problem. We got them out. We took out thousands of MS-13 gang members. We brought them back. And now, again, it's the same old story. We don't do it. And they actually gave them a big increase in aid. They raised it up to billions of dollars, and they get nothing for it. So, it's I hope everybody's going to vote for Trump, and we're going to get this country straight.
Yeah.
And I didn't need this.
I-
I'm like you. I didn't need this. I had a very nice
Yeah.
life. I didn't need to go through court systems and go through all the other stuff and run at the
Sure.
same time. I have to run. I have to go through fake trials with, in some cases, corrupt judges, totally corrupt judges. I didn't need it.
Still
I had a
over
nice
1 million
life.
watching. And look at
I have
this.
great
Look at this.
locations. I have beautiful
Philadelphia
oceans
rally.
that I have places.
Harris and Tim Walz.
this was,
565
but I felt it was
watching on
important.
YouTube.
And if I had to do it over again, you probably think I'm crazy for doing it, actually. But if I had to do it over again, I would have done it over again, because this is so much more important than me or my life. We're going to save this country. This country is going down. And these people are bad people that we're running against, and they're liars. They make statements. They do things that are so bad. They say they're going to make a strong border. They say they've been great on the border, and they've been the worst in history. They say they're going to stop
it's horrible.
crime.
Like, the facts speak for themselves.
It's so incredible.
Speak for themselves. Like it's got to the point where people just don't even bother reporting crime in a lot of
That's
cities,
right.
because they know nothing is going to happen. That's what I hear anecdotally from people all the time. So it's just my values. I'm just saying to people out there, like the things I think are important for the future is, like, we've got to have safe cities, we've got to have secure borders, we've got to have sensible spending, and we've got to have deregulation, and
Right.
So we can have a prosperous future. And then we want to have some exciting, sort of moonshot projects that people can get fired up about. And that's the future I'm looking for. And I'm pro environment, but I'm not against I'm not like I don't think we should vilify the oil and gas industry because they're keeping civilization going right now, and but I do think we want to move at a reasonable speed towards a sustainable energy economy. Those are my values, and I think and so I mean that's why I'm supporting you for president.
Well, I
So.
appreciate it. We're going to give incentive to companies to come into our country, not to leave our country. We're going to be giving tremendous incentives. We want companies to build here, not to build in other locations. And we want to create jobs. And again, it's about the American dream. You don't hear about the American dream anymore, Elon. You're the American dream in the truest sense, but you don't hear about the American dream anymore. And you're going to hear about it. People, they need that incentive to go out and do it. And they're going to love their lives. I mean, they're going to look forward to getting up in the morning and going to a job that they love, not a job that they can't stand, or not any job at all where they have no
That's a
money, where they
great
literally
meme
have
by
no money. And then
Alex.
they end up with violence and lots of
That's
other problems.
funny.
No, we're going
Yeah.
to do some great things. And I learned a lot in the first. We had a great economy and all of that. We rebuilt the military. We did so much. But I also learned the best people. I learned the good people, the smart people, the dumb people, the people that can do things. The people, you learn. When I first came in, I tell people I was in Washington, D.C. only 17 times, according to the fake news media. I was in 17 times. I never stayed over. And you don't know people. You rely on other people to give you names, and then you realize the people you relied on weren't so good. Now, we had great people,
Another
but we
great
also had
picture
some
here.
where I
That's
wouldn't
great.
have, used them had I known. Now I know everybody. And I think we're going to really turn things around fast. We have no choice. Otherwise, we're not going to have a country. And I really appreciate this. To me, it's been a lot of fun being with you. You're an amazing guy. You've done an incredible job and a great inspiration to people, a great inspiration. And I hope you keep going and just continue to do well. And we're going to have a big election coming up. And I think November 5th will be the most important day in the history of our country. I think that election will be the most important election. And I think it'll end up being maybe the most important day in the history of our country, because if we don't win, I
Roy
just feel
gets
so
it.
sorry for everybody.
No, I think we're at a fork in the road of destiny of civilization, and I think we need to take the right path, and I think you're the right path. So I think that's what it comes down to.
Thank you very much, Elon. It's a great honor, and we'll do it again sometime. And it's been really fun, and I hope you got a lot of viewers. I hear you got a lot, but I hope you got I know you got a lot of them. So I appreciate it. I'll see you soon.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, Elon. Thank you very much. Bye.
Okay, that concluded the portion with Elon and President Trump. I would like to kind of give my thoughts on this whole thing before we sign off and give you guys a chance to comment on this. Don't forget to drop a comment real quick. If you aren't following us yet, please drop a follow. It really helps us and help us to grow our channel. And follow us on X, follow us on YouTube. We're on every social media you can think of. So just follow us on those and help support us. That's the best way you can support us. So do that. But my thoughts on this whole thing are, I think that when you get Trump in a more candid situation, he is much more relatable. There was a recent video that he did with a golfer that was just a great video, because you get to see kind of how he is as a normal human being in the everyday. And I think this while it wasn't fully that, it was more that than it is when he is at a rally or in front of the press, and he's much more he's funny. I don't think people actually get how funny Trump actually is. He's actually got a great comedic sense, and he's actually really funny. And I think that on policy, he is talking, exactly what needs to happen. He may not be as articulate as somebody like a JD Vance, but he is very, very much in tune with what's going on in the country, what needs to happen. And the first and foremost, the thing that I'm voting on, number one, is the border. We have to close the border down. We have to have security at our border, because if we don't have a border, we don't have a country, as Elon said several times. It's very important. And then we get rid of the people that came in here illegally. The fact is they broke the law. And we've got to get rid of the violent criminals first, and then everyone else. Go to the line if you want to come into this country. There is a method. It's not like we shut our borders off, guys. We let people into our country all the time. Over 1 million a year. Legally. But that's the key. We have to do it legally. The other things are getting the education system back to the state level. We do not need a conglomerate in Washington, D.C. pushing our education narratives and ideology down to all of these schools. That needs to be handled at a state, and I would even argue a local level. My wife is a school teacher. She teaches high school English, and it is ridiculous the amount of pressure that comes from the top on that. And we should have our schools being run by the communities that they are in. The other thing, we have to secure our allies, but we also have to build our country back, build the economy back. We have to get this inflation down. It's killing everybody. And anybody that says that the inflation is not affecting them they're either dumb or they're lying. And if you don't see that, then I would honestly say you're probably just not a very intelligent person. And we need to continue to push and fight. As Trump said just seconds after being shot in the ear, fight. And that doesn't mean violently. That means we fight for the country that we believe in, the country as it was founded, where everybody has equal opportunity, but it's not a guaranteed outcome. You have to work for it. You have to fight for it. And I think that that's really, really important. I think Trump did a really good job tonight, and I think this is going to help him. There was, I think the last I checked, we were approaching 70 million views on that. That is insane. And consistently 1.2, 1.3 million concurrent viewers, which is, that's a crazy level, especially for a 2-hour interview. So I think this will help him, and I think this is a really good space for him to be in, because Elon is not going to try and just talk about all of these things that the media tries to talk about. He was actually talking about policy and even differing from Trump on certain things, but still saying he's our best option. He's our best chance at turning this thing around. So I think it's really, really important. Hope you guys really enjoyed this, and that you will come to our next live stream. We'll be streaming the debates. We're going to be streaming some other events as well. And we're actually going to start live streaming on a weekly basis here on our channel, just talking about current events. We're going to talk a little bit about our faith, and we're going to talk about what we do as the righteous savages, which is a lot of leadership. We do firearms training. We do all of that kind of stuff. So check out our content on our YouTube channel and all of our other social medias. Please like and follow us. If you guys want to support us, we have merch and we have coffee and we have all of this other stuff that you guys can get that shows your support. And we hope that you guys will tune in. Before you sign off, please drop a like and a subscribe. Hit that little bell so you know that when we're coming on next. And we will see you guys very, very soon.